platform and expressed an interest in making a comment, will be recognized by the superintendent and allowed to speak with the committee. If anyone watching this meeting live has questions or comments to share, they're encouraged to email one of us during the meeting. We will read their questions or comments during our second public input session at the end of the meeting. So welcome to this meeting of the Chelmsford School Committee. We have several presentations to start, so we'll get going with our approval of our minutes from our last meeting on January 19th.
I move that the school committee approve the minutes of our last meeting on January 19th.
Second.
Okay, any corrections, comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Minutes. Okay, next up, we have our student representatives, I believe.
Are they up there?
Yes,
Yeah.
they're joining us.
They're there.
I got a lot of people on my.
Hey everyone, hope you guys are doing well. Just want to thank Dr. Lang for the half day today as well. Our first update is that the school is starting the scheduling process for next year. Mr. Murray wanted us to let you guys know that. And also the winter sports season 2 is starting on February 22nd. And that includes sports like football, winter track, girls volleyball. And I know I'm really excited for that because I run track, so can't wait to get started. And yeah, on to Katrina.
Hey everyone, we hope all is well. We're having a great start to semester 2, and teachers have given up their Google Classroom codes for students to go join their new classes. Also, our winter sports teams have been very successful so far, and fans have been watching online since Chelmsford TV has been so great with broadcasting the games. And yeah, that's all.
Great, well, thank you guys very much.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Okay, anyone have any good news they want to share?
I didn't prep any good news for today. Good news is I shoveled out, so that's good news for everyone. If anybody else has any that they'd like to share, that would be great.
Anybody else have any good news they want to share?
I can say a few more things that I know are coming up that are great. They're filming both hockey and basketball games, so if parents don't get a chance to go in person, they are able to see them, and Katrina pointed out that TV is doing that. Also, they want to point out that the next Chelmsford News, which is a Valentine's edition, will be coming out. It's called Chelmsford News 3.0 Valentine's edition. The next newscast is in March. The virtual Intune, which is being led by Lime, I believe. It's transferred to virtual. And theater continues with its movies and its famous star right here sitting with us. And it's called Murder at Pendleton. And that's right now in the process of being edited as well.
Is that being filmed too, so we can? Oh,
Yeah.
oh, nice.
Our famous star.
That will. Maybe we'll play it at one of the meetings.
Yeah, the students have been great. I mean, it's filmed. You know, we do it through Zoom, and so it's working really well. So they're doing a really nice job. So
Okay, anybody else? Good news?
You know, maybe a little shout out to Chelmsford Boosters, because I think they've been terrific about making sure that, spectatorship is as much as it possibly can be under the conditions, working with local establishments, no pun intended, to make sure that, people have the opportunity to be able to watch, the games and competition, live.
Right.
So
I
I
know
think
they're
they've done a
doing-
phenomenal job.
They're doing the cutouts too, and the crowd have seen a couple
Cutouts,
pictures of
yeah.
that, so that's gonna be.
Yep. So I think that, to Katrina's point, I think that it has been a great start, and I think that, organizations like the Boosters have done a terrific job.
All right, anybody else? Good news. Okay. All right, so we're now to our first public input session, but I believe there are no people that, Registered?
We didn't have anyone registered to speak.
okay, anybody have any other ones they want to share at this point? Okay, all right, so moving on to new business.
Yes, we've actually got a full agenda this evening. We've got a bunch of different presentations, so we're going to jump right in. Our first one, we're continuing our spotlight on the schools and departments this evening, and we have one of our middle schools, Mccarthy Middle School, is here to talk about how they have adapted to COVID this year and some of the constraints that have been put on them programming-wise at the school. So I see Principal Kurt McPhee has a bunch of staff and students from the school with us, and I will turn it over to Kurt to hear a little bit about what's been happening at McCarthy this year.
Oh, we don't hear him.
All right. Hello, here we go. It's great to be here. This is actually my first time. I think I've been at school committee in a couple of years. I think we got wiped out toward the end of last year when the pandemic began. So it is great to be here. And you want good news? We're going to give you a lot of good news in the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. You know, I'm an optimistic person. So back in September, optimistically, you know, I generally see the glass half full. And, you know, as we started the school year, I was saying to myself, well, I'll be pleasantly surprised if we're here in November. And here we are in February. We're still here. It's great. It's unbelievable. Everyone has been amazing. You know, students, they've done everything we've asked them to do. We haven't had an issue where, you know, we even had to talk to a student about wearing a mask. They come in every day, masks on. If for some reason they get out of the car and forget it, they ask for it at the front door. You know, so they've been keep wearing their masks, staying distanced as best 10 to 14-year-olds can. You know, families have reorganized their households to meet the demands of remote learning. Parents have followed protocols. That's really helped us out. And I cannot say enough about our staff. They've learned so many new instructional techniques and tech tools. And these are tools and techniques that will stay with them, you know, and reshape classrooms moving forward. Truly, everyone has been astounding. You know, I could also go on and mention custodial staff, the office staff, the nurses led by Peggy Gump, and the technology staff. And I could go on and on. But we're not here to hear that. I want to be able to have you here with some of the good things going on through staff members and students. I have Mrs. Calabrese here. You know, she is our pride queen. She, you know, for her first year and 6 months, you know, almost every day on announcements, you know, should be talking about the pride acronym and, you know, giving, you know, the whole school, you know, a little nugget about pride in the mornings on announcements. And we had to shift a little bit. And I'm not going to put you on the spot, Mrs. Calabrese, but do you want to just talk for a minute about how you've had the kind of change pride this year?
Certainly. So with the learning models that we were undergoing this year, we wanted to make sure, we thought to ourselves, how could we convey the perseverance, respect, integrity, dedication, and empathy, the daily messaging through our typical school days to a remote population as well as a hybrid population, which would be coming in and out of the building a couple of days during the week. So we wanted to make sure that we included all of the new pieces that come with remote learning. So what we did was we injected prompts into our pride matrix that would guide students to take care of technologies, what to do if technologies were giving them some trouble, how to be responsible with those devices, how to seek help. And then we also wanted to build some expectations for behaviors and academic success in the new learning environments such as Google Classrooms and Google Meets. So we did a lot of communicating with students. We had staff that we intertwined the safety guidelines along with our pride expectations for in-building and remote expectations. We did that through videos and also through PowerPoint presentations that the staff would make sure they would inject these important messages to their classrooms. So once we felt the communication was all set, you know, to go, we would just revisit, you know, halfway through the semester and at the end of every term now, how the students are doing. Like Mr. McPhee said, they have been absolutely amazing. The level of compliance that we've had with the safety guidelines has been through the roof. We can't say enough about the kids, you know, especially our remote population. They have really done an outstanding job staying connected to us and also still being very vital members of our school community. So it's been an interesting road, but we feel like we've communicated very successfully thus far.
All right. So, I'm just trying to move.
You won't go to the next one for him?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Here we go. All right, so back in the fall, Mr. Sullivan came and approached me, about whether or not we felt like we could run a Project 300. And, we were going back and forth. And then, Mr. Gallagher kind of got involved, and there was no way we weren't running it. So I'm just going to turn it over to just Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Sullivan just to talk about the thought process and how we had to kind of change how we attacked Project 300. For those of you who have never heard of Project 300, Project 300 is our school-based food drive, which we annually collect, usually over 20,000 up, sometimes some years up to 30,000 in a normal year. It's been going on for roughly 44 years. Food's generally donated to the Salvation Army in Lowell. They really count on our food drive to help them and the needy families in Greater Lowell. So with that, I am just going to turn it over to Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Sullivan, for a few words.
Sully, you want to talk first?
Nope. Go ahead, T-Bone.
Project 300 is, without a doubt, it's the largest student-run, school-based food collection, food drive in New England. We collect annually anywhere from 28 to, I think the record is just over 40,000 food items, non-perishable food items for the local food pantry and the Salvation Army in our area in the Merrimack Valley. And we feed the students, the community, and the staff with their efforts over a week's base time. Feed anywhere from 900 to 1,500 families through Thanksgiving. And we usually do it where it's a giant competition at school. Homerooms are competing against each other. Teachers are arguing with each other over what items count, what items don't. There's just really the school comes together for an entire week, and it just turns itself upside down for this fundraising effort, if you want to put it that way, for people that they don't even know, people that they probably won't even come across. And I found out personally myself, I found out 8 years ago that we were feeding a student that I had in class. Their family was getting food from the Salvation Army that was coming directly from Project 300. So this year, myself and Mr. Sullivan sat down and hemmed and hawed over whether it could be done and how we should do it. And basically what we did is Mr. Sullivan worked on the logistics of, our drop-off areas. What are we going to do? How are we going to get the food into the building? How are we going to be safe with all that stuff? And my job was basically to blow up all that and make it as hectic as possible and get as many people involved as we possibly could. And I sat there and I said, we were trying to set a goal, and I said to Mr. Sullivan, 15,000. That's it. That's the number we're shooting for. That's what we're going for. 15,000. Tell everybody it's 15,000. That's what we're looking for. And, we put it out there to the kids. We put it out there to the community. And in true Chelmsford fashion, the kids in the community came together, and over the top, we had 16,691 food items that we donated this year to the Salvation Army and the food pantry, which is just downright exciting. We were on TV a couple of times. We were on the radio a couple of times. And we had support from local businesses, two most importantly, the Brick House in the center and the Brick House in North Chelmsford. During the pandemic here, businesses are down 20% for the most part, especially restaurant businesses. They donated, they had a one night, pizza fest type of deal, and they donated 50%. 50% of what came in, they donated to Project 300 and the students at Mccarthy to help us push us over the top. And I can't, it's, yeah, we did miss, all the stuff that went on in school. That was kind of depressing. But, the year that we collected over 40,000, it doesn't compare to this year during a pandemic. These kids and students and, the faculty at McCarthy and stuff along those lines, reaching a goal, surpassing a goal of 16,691 food items. And it was just a fantastic, warming feeling to know that. And, I don't think that the students and the community and so forth get enough pat on the back for that, because they're the ones that did all the legwork. Myself and Mr. Sullivan just put the logistics together and tried to make it work.
Mr. Sullivan, do you want to add?
Yes, thank you, Mr. McPhee. Just really quickly, this is our 45th year, and we've, as a community, have collected over 800,000 items in those 45 years. It's just amazing. And as Mr. Gallagher said, in years past, what really moves this is the 8th grade students. And the 8th grade students will come in early Tuesdays or whatever before school, and they will go and talk to the younger classes about the importance of this. But what's amazing to me is that I still have kids who are in college who are donating to Project 300. It is still in their blood, and they continue to do this. And this year, we were blown away. As Mr. Gallagher had mentioned, I was outside collecting, and you saw people coming in with these huge bags and boxes, and this was just out of the goodness of their hearts. The kids did an amazing job this year. We had nothing, there was nothing for us to incentivize them. They just did it because they're good kids. And, if any, and we're still, with some of this money from the Brick House, we're still buying items, and we're getting those over to the Chelmsford Food Pantry. Now, on this call right now, we have a couple of these rock stars that helped us out this year. And, I think it would be great if they could drop a couple lines and tell us how they went about it. Now, we have, which is great, 5th graders, Emma and Abigail, which is just unbelievable because they've never done this before. And they, they're the face of it. That's the problem going forward, because they're celebrities. They were all over the news, and they gave a great interview. And also, we have Sam and Lily, the Oaks. Sam comes from the great Teammate 1, and they went out and they did a fantastic job themselves. So I'm putting you on the spot, 5th graders, and just if you could give us a little bit about what you did to be the rock stars that you guys are. And then we'll get over to the Oakses. Emma?
Yeah, I basically just teamed up with Abby, and we basically just wanted to, we thought about how many people out there who didn't have enough food and who were not as lucky and as fortunate as we were. So we wanted to give back as much as we could and try to help them so they could have as much food as, around as much food as we could for Thanksgiving, and we wanted to make that special for them.
Well, maybe Abigail, you can add in exactly how you guys went about collecting.
Yeah, so one Wednesday night we went around and passed out flyers into people's mailboxes, and then we gave them a couple of days to buy some cans and food, and then we picked them up, and when we just kept going around, And the more bags we got, the more amazed we got because we got like over maybe 300. We just got blown away by how much bags were in the trunk.
Yeah, you guys were awesome. All right, the Oaks family, Lily and Sam. Tell us a little bit about how you guys went about collecting, because I heard you guys turned in about 350 food items.
Yeah, we got close there, so we went around the neighborhood and we collected some food items. So we got some food items from family members, and my mom's work helped us with some of our can collecting.
Awesome. Awesome. So you guys, again, it was a tremendous, accomplishment to bring in the amount of food we brought in under the conditions we brought them in. And the community was outstanding. And, we just tried to keep this year, as normal as possible and do what Mccarthy does. Mccarthy cares. We go the extra mile to get back. And great job. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Gallagher.
If I could just jump in real quickly. Next year, when this whole COVID nonsense behind us, we're going to bring this thing back, and it's going to be huge. Emma, Abby, Sam, and Lily, they're going to come back, and they're going to show everybody how it's done. And we're going to have a big party next year because you guys have done such a fantastic job. And also, if anybody there ever wants to help out, wants to get involved, please reach out to myself or Mr. Gallagher. And, everything helps. Donations for even prizes for kids and things of that nature. Next year it's going to be our best year ever with Project 300. So thank you so much. And Mrs. Santos, I miss you. Come and see us sometime, would you? I missed you.
Miss you guys too.
All right, well done. So just kind of moving on, just in the spirit of, we're trying to keep this year as normal as possible. It was around the end of October that, Dr. Parks and I got together, once we were in school for about 6 weeks, wanted to try to put together after school activities. It's one of the great things that separates elementary, middle school from elementary is the opportunity to have after school activities. And we always impress upon the students, as they come to us as fifth graders coming from all 4 different elementary schools, we try to tell them activities is a great way to meet kids from other schools that have similar interests. So this year on the slide, you see the kind of the whole gamut of the clubs we're offering this year. I do have some highlighted, and we do have the teachers who are involved with those clubs, as well as some of the students involved. So I'm actually just going to turn it over to Mrs. Richardson to just talk about what she's trying to accomplish in drama this year in a virtual environment. And then, she'll maybe pose some questions to a couple that are involved with genre. Mrs. Richardson?
Thank you, Mr. McPhee, for asking me to come and represent. Thank you, school committee. And I'm Mrs. Richardson, Jody Richardson. I do drama club after school, as many of you are familiar with. This year, we really racked our brains to figure out how to do this in a virtual sense. Last year was really disappointing for our crew as COVID caused us to be quarantined 7 days before we were to put up our show. And we had all that work done and didn't get to go through with it. So we just tried to figure out what can we do. So this is what we're doing. Currently, we're doing a virtual play. It's called The Internet is Distracting. Oh, look, a kitten. And this is actually very appropriate title, very appropriate play for middle school level. It is not a musical. We are rehearsing virtually and we will perform it virtually. And our goal is to do a live performance recording, meaning that we're not recording each section. We're going to perform it in one whole thing and record that performance. So we are currently rehearsing that. Following this production, we're going to go into big group weekly meetings where we will provide instruction and training in typical theater skills choreography, vocal technique, makeup, improv games, diction and projection, monologue or dialogue work. And that will include the group as a whole, anybody who wants to be a part of Drama Club. We currently have more than 50 kids signed up to be in that group, and I anticipate that growing a little bit as we go on. Right now, we have 18 in the virtual play that we're doing that were auditioned. And 2 of those students are with me tonight. I have Benny and Mia. Benny, I would ask you, why did you sign up for Drama Club? What, or how it was different, whichever one you prefer to answer. Benny?
Well, one of the things that drew me to drama was I was recently seeing like a bunch of commercials for like The Lion King on Broadway and like these people dancing and singing together. And I was like, that looks pretty fun. I kind of want to try that. So, and then when I found out what it really was, like it was called drama, I realized that that was one of the clubs that I could do at school. So I ended up auditioning, and I did the best that I could for first year, and I got not acapella, but I got I didn't get a role, but you were still in the play. So you still got to be a part of it, which it was something like you could get into it from that. You had to start at the bottom, kind of.
In the ensemble is what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, Benny. We also have Mia with us tonight. Mia, can you talk a little bit about how it's different this year or why you chose to be a part of it this year?
Yeah, it is different this year because we obviously aren't in person and we aren't doing the same things, but it is also similar because we're still with all the same people. We're in the same environment, and it's just really, really fun. And we do hope to get back in person soon, hopefully. But it's also different because like you're experiencing a different way, so you can get like you can further your skills by doing it in a different way, I guess.
Thank you, Mia. Yes, it's quite different when you're used to standing on a stage and filling the room, and now your audience is this little hole on a computer screen. So it's a little different approach, but I'm really proud of the kids, and I think they're doing well, and I hope you enjoy our play when it comes out. And we're also looking forward to how the new auditorium comes together. And we would love the opportunity to christen that building at the end of the year somehow safely if that happens. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Lang and Mr. McPhee for allowing us to be here tonight.
And the other 2 clubs that we're trying to highlight today are clubs that are newer to McCarthy. Last year, we began running Dungeons and Dragons. Mr. Robat ran it with Mrs. Rush last year. And this year, he just ran with it himself. I think Mr. Falzani is helping him out a little bit. But I'll just turn it over to you, Jason, to talk about, the differences in last year to this year and how it's going.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, hey, everybody who doesn't know me, my name is Mr. Robat. So we did start Dungeons and Dragons Club last year, and it blew up a lot bigger than we thought it was going to. We were very pleasantly surprised. At one point, we had over 50 kids in the club, and it was a lot of fun. That kind of posed its own challenges of allowing us to figure out a way to kind of divide everybody up into these adventuring parties, like these little groups, their individual games, that were, big enough that you felt like you got the whole experience, but not too big that, you felt like it was just like really loud. But it it worked out a lot better than I think we thought. We were a little nervous at the beginning, but thanks to a bunch of our awesome students stepping up and volunteering to be dungeon masters or players themselves, we found an incredible amount of success. There were so many students who reached out to me this year, wanting to continue. So we decided to keep the ball rolling. The club this year is a little bit smaller just due to the virtual aspect of it. But we still see that there are a ton of kids, especially like younger kids, really, really getting into Dungeons and Dragons. And so it's interesting talking to people about this weird D&D renaissance that's happening. Because like in the 70s, people had their opinions of it. But nowadays, you're seeing it in Stranger Things. You're seeing it on like web shows. You're seeing it on podcasts and stuff. So it's really taking off. And there are a lot of students who are really interested in it. So I also have brought 2 students, Benny, who spoke in the last group. He is a player. He's an adventurer in my group. And I also brought Joe Evans, who is one of our student DMs. So he's a dungeon master. So he writes and runs and essentially does everything for his own game. And he has a group that he is taking on an adventure to. And so I'll ask them to share their experience. But in our transition from, in person, it's a very, it's a tabletop role-playing game, so it's a very kind of personal, making jokes, telling stories, collaborative teamwork sort of stuff. It's a little bit harder to do via a webcam. So actually watching some of our student DMs gave me great ideas on how to sort of streamline our own process and how we hope to improve it for next year. So we're using, Google Meets to sort of, put everybody in breakout rooms to sort of divvy everybody up. A lot of people have started using like jam boards and things like that, like resources you would use in the classroom to create maps and stuff to sort of navigate the different challenges that we face. There was talk of starting a school-run Discord server, so that way kids would be able to share resources, like free online resources and stuff like that we would use in our adventures. So it's really cool. So I have a lot of ideas that I'm working on right now. So I'm really excited to see the evolution of our club and to eventually we'll be able to use both the online portion and the in-person portion when we're able to do so. But I'll pass it over to my students. First, I want to start with Benny. Benny, how'd you hear about Dungeons and Dragons? Because you're a brand new player. So I guess how'd you hear about it, and what are your opinions of it now that you've started playing with us?
So I heard about Dungeons and Dragons through a podcast I started listening to, like one of the things that you listed. But through that podcast, I started to learn the rules and understand how to do D&D. So I invested myself in it, and at first it's a lot to take in and you don't know what to say or do, but then it starts to all make sense and it becomes easier, and it's a great way to express yourself, because in D&D I can be a male in real life, but in D&D I can be a complete different gender or race or anything like that. And no one can really say no because it's your imagination.
Great, thanks, Benny. Yeah, I think a lot of students are finding that this is an outlet for self-expression that they may not have otherwise gotten, which is really cool to see. And one of our most important pillars of D&D is kind of creating a safe space where everybody can kind of play the way they want. Joe, so as a dungeon master, how's your experience been now that we're running fully remote?
So I've been running D&D. I ran a bit before everything happened. I was in person, and it was amazing in person when I was both playing and running the game. Like we were, I feel like we were much closer in person. But now that we can't be in person, I've had to kind of change how I run the game, and like pretty much everything about it almost. It's been harder to teach new players how to play the game because I can't like point something out on the sheet. I have to like describe where it is to them, like small things like that. And if they have questions about like a rule or something, I can't like describe it unless I know where it is, like in the books. But I feel like Benny said, my players, I have, I think 3 new players in my group. They were a bit overwhelmed at first, but now I feel like they've really gotten a hold of the game and they're really starting to enjoy it. I hope that they continue once all this is over and they can play in person, because I feel like that's a much better experience and it will make great memories for everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, and so Joe's been doing a fantastic job as a DM. Sometimes if my session ends early, I'll pop into his group or some of the other DMs groups, and just watching these kids come up with, you know, their own tales, their own adventures, and their own solutions to kind of like the technology problem or different things that have stumped me. You know, their creative solutions have helped me as, you know, the person who kind of runs the club and also a person who's trying to run a game. So just the entire group has done absolutely fantastic, and we continue to hope that we can ride this momentum, and then eventually when we can get back together in person, we're gonna, you know, roll some dice again, just like the good old days.
Okay, I think you have a question here from Mr. Moses.
Hey guys, I just wanted to know, hey, Benny, this is specifically to you. What class are you playing right now?
I am a air genocide, and I'm a
Nice.
monk/rogue.
Oh, nice. I'm also a monk. That's great. And to Joe, be nice to your players. I'm never going to be nice to a DM, so that's all I got for Joe. But cool. I'm glad they have the club. So.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic time. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you guys. The last group we want to highlight tonight, it's actually a first. We have students from both middle schools in the American Sign Language Club being run by our own, Miss Abby Dick. So I'm going to turn it over to Abby, and she's got a few students here as well. And she can talk about ASL. And like I said, it's been a pretty popular club, running for the first time this year.
So hi, my name is Abby. My name is Abby Deck, and I'm the English department coordinator for the district. So I work at Parker and McCarthy and at the high school. And last year I started an ASL club at Chelmsford High School, mostly because I wanted to share ASL with some other students, and I'm learning ASL at the same time. So basically I need more people to practice with. So anytime I can get other people involved, I try to do that. And I had about 10 kids or so who would come regularly. And now we have in our world language department a full-time ASL teacher at Chelmsford High School, which is amazing and remarkable. And this year I wanted to start middle school ASL club, and the goal was really just to get more students invested in the language so that when they go to Chelmsford High School, they could take that as a course. So I thought maybe, 10 kids will come, something like that. There are 70 kids in this club, and we meet online, obviously in Google Classroom. And ironically, it's been totally amazing because there are students from Parker and from McCarthy. So there are students interacting who've never met each other before, which is really blowing their minds. But also I'm able to have high school students come and run breakout groups in the club. So it's not just me talking to all the squares, they're getting into smaller groups. So the enthusiasm has been really incredible. And it's just been a great time so far. So 3 students here, Zoe and Jane and Mia. And we'll go in that order, Zoe, then Jane, then Mia. If you could just share one thing you've learned so far, or talk about why you signed up, or just share what you enjoy about it. So Zoe, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Zoe, and I do ASL because there are so many disabled people around us who cannot communicate very well verbally. And I don't think many people realize that there's so many people around us, because it's not just deaf people. There are many kids with autism who are learning ASL to communicate, because sometimes it is very hard for them to get their feelings and communicate with words. So I just think that's pretty cool. I think it's a really unique way to talk to people, and yeah, that's why I do ASL.
Awesome, thank you. Jane, go ahead.
Hi. My name is Jane, and I just think ASL is super cool. I know I gotten books about it, but it's really hard to learn it just from a book. So I'm really glad that you have an ASL club, I was super excited when I saw that. And we've been learning from the beginning of a conversation how to say your name and what's your name, and my name is Jane and stuff. And I thought that was really cool.
Awesome, thank you. Mia.
Hi, my name is Mia. And the reason I do ASL is, like Zoe said, so I can communicate with more people, and also because honestly, me and my friends last year, we would sometimes try to do it to communicate in class because we weren't allowed to talk. So we would do hand signs, but we didn't really know how to do it very well. So I thought that this could also help with that, and it's also just really fun.
Awesome, thank you so much. So yeah, this is the first year. We've only had a handful of meetings so far, but it's going really well, and the high school students have been incredibly helpful as well. So we're doing great. Thank you.
Thank you. All the students who shared, all the staff members and colleagues that helped out this presentation. I know you guys have a lot of presentations tonight, so we can field any questions if you want, or we can let you move on.
Any questions anybody has?
Can we comment?
Yeah.
So first of all, McCarthy has a special place in my heart. It was a great place to be for 4 years. And tonight,
We love you too.
Thank you. And seeing what you're doing with activities just warms the heart, and it makes it feel wonderful to know that you're doing all this, especially today in this kind of environment. All of the students that presented, hey, kudos to you. You guys are great. And you make me want to be here. So thank you so much for doing it. To all the teachers and to Ms. Dick, who's a coordinator, I just honestly want to thank you for taking on the activities and for giving more of your time, even during this virtual time frame of education. I really, really want to thank you because I think students benefit so much from this. It's what makes them sometimes want to come to school. And I just cannot say enough how much I thank you for it. And to the administrators, Mr. McPhee and everyone for being open to it. All these new clubs, it's wonderful to see. So congratulations to you all. And I hope next year it's all in person. Thank you.
We do too. We do too. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I just had one question. Do you have a lot of fully remote students taking advantage of these clubs, or?
I think it's a mix. It's a pretty good mix.
Okay.
Um,
Just that it's a good way to get them, more interacting with the other students. Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, that's, in a sense, that's the way we built our specialist classes in the afternoon. They're a mix of remote kids and hybrid kids, so.
Great.
Try to do that as much as possible.
All right, well, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, everyone. Well
Thank
done.
you. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.
Congratulations
McCarthy
to
staff and
Project
students.
300.
Great, thanks.
All right, we can move on to our second presentation of the night.
Just congratulate you on the sound. It was great.
Let's not jinx us.
Okay.
It's going very,
There we go.
going very well tonight so far. I think part of it might be that I actually had Linda do it as opposed to me. It may have been used error in the past, I'm not
It's
sure.
very good.
Yeah, it is working. So our second presentation tonight is our mathematics coordinator, Dr. Matthew Baranavant, is going to talk a little bit about some of the mathematics that are happening in the district this year, and it's a unique year, a COVID year. So is Dr. Baranavant with us?
Yep, he's up.
All right, you're good to go and you can hear us.
Excellent. Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Lang, Dr. Hirsch, members of the school committee for having me here this evening. I'm going to be tying in the presentation about mathematics to follow up the work of Mr. McPhee and McCarthy Middle School and trying to discuss some of the issues related to the academics at the middle school level. So what I want to begin by doing is giving a brief overview of what I would like to discuss this evening. And I think the things that most people, the parents, the community, as well as the school committee is interested in hearing about is about what we have been and are doing to support students in mathematics during these difficult times of hybrid and remote learning. So that's the first thing that I'm going to talk about. And then drawing upon the idea of following up the McCarthy presentation, spending some time talking about the development of the standards-based report card at the middle school level. We spoke about this a bit last year. Dr. Hirsch did some work on it, a presentation earlier this year, and I'm going to be following up from the mathematics perspective in the work that we have done and are continuing to do with that transition. And then, of course, there'll be some time to be able to answer any questions by the committee about the presentation. So before we begin, I would like to do a little bit of an activator with my friends on the committee here. And I believe in the philosophy that we have within the mathematics department is what ways can we have authentic engagement with students in a way that has a low barrier of entry, meaning that everybody can participate, but yet also can really help develop problem solving and critical thinking skills. So what I'd like to ask everyone is to tell me which of these four figures does not belong with the rest, and what reason can you support your assertion? So I'm looking for a volunteer.
John,
John Moses is going to volunteer.
I'll just do it. I'm in. Let's do it, Matt.
Excellent.
All right.
Which one
So
doesn't
which
fit?
one and why?
Which one doesn't belong?
Which one doesn't work?
Which
Fit?
one doesn't belong and why?
Doesn't belong with the rest. So which one's the outlier that you observe in this particular image?
The Pentagon,
Okay, why the Pentagon?
because it's not only thing without 4 90-degree angles on it.
Oh, excellent, very nice. Is there a different member who could come up with a different figure here?
One of them is shaded and the other three aren't.
Yeah.
Ah, excellent. So one of them has the shading, the other three are not. Is there maybe one more volunteer?
There's a mouse hovering over the rectangle, but I don't think
That's-
that's the answer.
You know what? That's not the answer, but that got you to participate, so we're absolutely going to. So with this sort of a question, which one doesn't belong, it's a great way to begin the lesson because you know what? There's no wrong answer. You can make an argument for each of these being the one that doesn't belong. And it's a way to, again, be able to articulate your thinking, produce some reasoning. And so we really try to encourage this sort of thing, either what's called which one doesn't belong or something that we refer to as notice and wonder. And we've been really trying to incorporate this at all the different levels when instruction in mathematics takes place. So now we made it through the warm-up activity. let's just take a brief moment to share quickly what the philosophy is of mathematics within the Chelmsford Public Schools. The first thing is that we very much believe in the ideas of conceptual understanding. We want our students to be able to know how and why the mathematics exists. Why is the formula for area of a circle pi times radius squared? Because if you understand it, you're more likely to be able to remember it and also apply it. We believe that there should be a focus also on the ideas of procedures, but our focus is on conceptual understanding. The second thing is that within the STEM field, the science, the technology, and the engineering, students authentically love those subjects. And then you have us, the ugly stepsister of mathematics, where many times people have a very negative attitude. So we try to very much produce joyful mathematics and joyful learning whenever possible. So that's the second philosophy. And finally, probably the most important, is a growth mindset. There's no such thing as a math person or not a math person. We believe very much that everybody has the ability to do math, and making mistakes is part of the learning process. So those three themes we have been trying to promote at all the levels in COVID times or in our normal times. But what I think we really want to spend a few minutes in talking about is what we are doing and how we are doing it to support our students in, for most of them, their most difficult subject of mathematics during these times. The first thing, similar to what Mr. McPhee said when he spoke about his staff, is the mathematics teachers within the Chelmsford Public Schools have done an unbelievable job reinventing instruction, learning the technologies, and finding a way to keep our philosophy of conceptual understanding, joyful mathematics, and growth mindset in a hybrid and or remote setting for our students. What we have done is we have slightly adjusted our pacing throughout the year because of the situation that we are in. But I want to report to you that at all the levels, especially at the middle school level, we are doing very well with our pacing as compared to other years. And when we look at some other districts, and we're not here to compare other districts, but I know for my own children's district, they are really only covering half of the standards or half of the curriculum. But I'm proud to share with you that we are able to keep up with our curriculum through the dynamic teaching of our staff. And in addition to that, there has been some concerns brought up about, well, what sort of regression might have taken place from the spring and the learning in mathematics in particular. The good news is that based on our own standardized assessments that we do in-house through iReady, we have found that students this year are really where they're supposed to be as compared to previous years, so that the learning of mathematics is still occurring. We are still able, through difficult times, to teach and have students learn mathematics at the same or very close to the same level that they have been on the past. One of the ways we've been able to do that is through our use of interactive manipulatives, with both of our programs being Math Expressions K-5 and Big Ideas 6 through 12. We've been able to keep that concrete hands-on representation of manipulatives through a virtual manner so that students can still learn and understand the mathematics. And as I mentioned, the iReady data that we use as our own self-assessment and an indicator to determine student learning, especially where we did not have MCAS last year, at all the levels that we use it at, the elementary and the middle school level, show that students are still making great growth, which had been a concern of mine as well as others during these difficult times. One of the things that we've been so lucky to have is National Honor Society students volunteering to help at the middle school level to support certain students and classes where students are falling behind, where kids might need that little bit of extra support because of the difficulties of the remote and the hybrid learning. So we've been forming that partnership with Mrs. Dulamis and Mrs. Gaffney at the high school to have those NHS students working with us. And also what we have done is we've been adjusting our assessments a little bit in regards to the frequency in which we would be giving them. Every teacher has their own philosophy, and I very much like to empower teachers to make their own decisions. But one of the things that I shared with all the teachers at all the levels this year is that we may want to consider cutting back the number of assessments. It does not mean that we're not interested in seeing how much learning is taking place, but the amount of time that we have with the students face to face is very much limited. And I don't think that we want to be spending entire class periods assessing when that valuable time could be spent learning the content that is necessary. So less assessments, and if we do have them frequently, maybe they don't need to be a full class period, 45 or 50 minutes in length. Maybe they could only be 20 minutes because, again, the time with the kids is so valuable. And finally, we are keeping up with our honors placement process as we keep on the middle school theme a little bit this evening. We don't have MCAS as one of our indicators from last year. So we've adjusted our process, which is on the website and was also shared with parents at the beginning of the year. Instead, we're using that iReady internal document, or it's a standardized process, as the indicator since we don't have MCAS for being able to determine our placement process for students as they go into 7th grade and again as they move out of 8th grade into the high school. We very much are a data-driven department, which makes sense because it's the mathematics department. And our goal is to always have students be in a place where they can be challenged, but also successful, because we want all of our students to be successful when they learn mathematics. Moving on to the second topic, and again specifically related to the middle school level, is the progress that we're making with standards-based report cards. It has been a process over the last couple of years that we have been implementing since its success at the elementary level a few years ago. So within the mathematics department, as well as the other departments, we have completed all of the standards that are going to be going on the report card. What we have done is we have identified within the math department approximately 10 to 12 standards that we consider to be the most important, that we call as the indicators or power standards that we want to focus on for the grades, for the grading period. And what we are doing now is we're currently looking at our common assessments and coming up with some calibrations as to what exactly would be required to meet the expectations, which is the ultimate goal here. What would be the level for someone who's developing? And is there a possibility that you can exceed a particular standard? Where in some cases, there might not be a possibility to exceed in a particular standard. So that's the process that we're currently working on now during our meeting during common planning time, as well as our after school time that we have with the teachers. And so the next thing that we're going to be doing, and this is going to be led at the building level, not at the department level, is determining what sort of comments we're going to be having with our updated report cards. We wanted to have a few common themes, the study habits of the students that is going to be shared by each teacher within the department. And so that work is beginning in March. And then finally, at the end of March, tentatively scheduled, I believe, for March 31st, we're going to be having a parent night to be able to share with the parents in the community exactly what it looks like and how you can actually learn more information about the growth and development of your child as compared to an 87 or a B- or whatever the case might be. And then the last step is that we are going to be training all of the teachers at the middle school level on the way of implementing the standards-based grades on X2 and what exactly that looks like. So that once we've completed the process, they will then have an opportunity to see and to practice the grading, the inputting of the standards-based grades onto the report card. So this is something that I very much believe in strongly, and it's been working very well at the elementary level, and I anticipate that once it's implemented at the middle school level, we will see some similar success. So with that, I want to thank you for your time, for those 15, and it's real, 15 minutes of your time talking about mathematics and what we are doing, as well as sharing a little bit about the standards-based report cards. So with that, I'm now open for any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Nope. Oh, I don't
Great
think
work.
so.
No.
Great
All
work.
right, well,
Thank you,
thank you
Matt.
very much.
Thank you, Matt.
Keep it to 15 minutes. You gotta give
Yeah,
credit for
I
that.
think there was a mandate.
Well, we always say
Well,
between
without
10 and 15
questions,
minutes.
that's either a really, really good sign or a really, really bad sign. Being a glass half full guy, I'm going to say that means that you liked everything I said. So thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate the support from everybody on the committee, as well as Dr. Lang and Dr. Hirsch.
Thank you, Matthew. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Matthew.
it.
Hi, Matthew. Okay.
All right, moving along. Update number 3 this evening, just as we get set up. As you recall, back in, I want to say it was the end of November, early December, we had talked about an assessment to the HVAC systems that was going to be taking place in the schools. And actually, it may have even been back in October, to be honest with you. But it was this past fall. And the town had hired a firm to come in and actually do about a 20 to 25% review of all of the classrooms, the unit vents, the rooftop units, things along those lines. And we got some baseline data. We looked at some quick repairs that could be done. One of the things that was pointed out is we really should go through a rebalancing process on the system, and we decided to do a full-blown repair of 100% of the equipment as opposed to 20 to 25%. So Melissa Joyce from Department of Public Works is with us tonight. I'm just trying to look real quick. I see Gary Persichetti is up there as well if we have any questions. But Melissa is here tonight to just give us a little update. She'll walk us through what's actually transpired to date, kind of where we're at in the process. I did provide a memo that was in your packet that I believe was from Kathleen Canavan she'd put together, just to give you some quick hit numbers. And then Melissa will kind of walk us through where we're at the process. So Melissa, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Lang. And I just want to preface my quick overview here with a big thank you. We've been doing a lot of work in the schools, and I would be remiss if I did not mention the work of the custodians, Brian Curley, the principals, teachers, being interrupted by us from time to time. We appreciate everyone's flexibility, recognizing that this is important work that needs to be done and that we're trying to keep to a schedule. We do appreciate the efforts that and the inconveniences across the district. So thank you. To reference Kathleen Canavan's memo, and as Dr. Lang mentioned, we immediately or ongoing had increased our kind of basic service enhancements to the district. So daily we have our HVAC contractor on site addressing issues that come up in terms of work orders from custodians, teachers, faculty and staff. And we also have our control contractor working daily, remotely, and then their electrician on site once a week to address the issues that we continue to uncover as we nearly complete our mechanical assessment. So there is a chart in Kathleen's memo. It just is kind of a quick snapshot of where we are to date in terms of our completion of the assessment. So the first step is to kind of do a preventative maintenance assessment on each piece of equipment in the district, and that's both inside the classrooms, but also air handlers and rooftop units across the district as well. So you can see that we are nearing completion on that, and falling back at the same time to complete some of the repairs that have been noted in our efficiency reporting. So we are going to be wrapping that portion of it up, and moving into the second phase, which is, as Dr. Lang mentioned, the testing and balancing. So working with CMTA, consulting engineering. We all heard from Jess Barber a few months ago when he gave his presentation, very thorough, to assist the testing and balancing company in really working through each space, determining what the appropriate volume of air and quantity of air is in each space, depending on space and the number of occupants, and making sure that our equipment is performing to that standard. And it's a very collaborative effort between the engineers, the testing and balancing company, our HVAC contractors, the control contractors, and public facilities and the school department custodian. So it's a tremendous amount of work, and we're moving through it. We expect to begin the testing and balancing during February vacation. So we can work with a few teams from the testing and balancing company that we award or are going to be awarding the contract to, and kind of just get this process rolling and hopefully wrapped up. They have 60 days to complete the testing and balancing contractually. So we will be on schedule for and prepared for them to be able to complete that work within that time frame. There's a third phase, which we have yet to kind of really put our hands around, and that's capital improvements. We do anticipate that as we move through this process, there will be some significant repairs or forward thinking and planning in order to anticipate some of the needs of our equipment as it ages over time here. So that's kind of the quick overview. I'm happy to answer questions that folks have. If I don't have the answer myself, I can certainly get back to you. Dr. Lang, is there anything else that you'd like me to highlight? We can have questions.
No, maybe we'll see if there's questions. I think that was a good overview. I think the couple takeaways, the town did do a procurement process to bring the testing and balancing company on board. The select board will be receiving that recommendation next Monday at their meeting, and then the notice to proceed will be issued right after that. But I know Melissa and the group have already talked to the company to kind of let them know that they're being recommended for the award so that they can mobilize and get dates locked in. But I think I think they're going to try to get a couple of teams in over February vacation when there's no one in the buildings and try to get as much done as they possibly can. So even though there's a 60-day time frame, I really do think a lot of the work is going to happen over February vacation right through probably early March. But we're happy that that's happening. And just to let the committee know and even the public, that the contract will be on the select board agenda for next week. So no, Melissa, I thought you did a nice job. Let's just see if the committee members maybe have any questions for you.
Donna?
Melissa, thank you for the presentation. Could you just remind everyone what the balancing is going to achieve?
Sure. So there are standards that are set out that from the ASHRAE, which is kind of a national air quality standard, and what that calculates based on occupancy and the square footage of the room will determine to what standard we're able to actually bring in fresh air and ventilation into the spaces. That's kind of required by that code, and now that's a design code, but that's what we're really aiming for, is just making sure that we're getting our air changes in per hour, and that there's the appropriate amount of outside air being brought in to maintain reduce CO levels, and of course to mitigate some of the concerns around COVID as well. But this is a general air quality standard, and in COVID times and hopefully beyond, it will it's been shown that increased air quality in schools leads to higher productivity, and it's a general health measurement of a building in general. So that's what we're aiming to balance to those numbers set out by ASHRAE standards.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, when you talked about the air quality standard and the balancing having also to do with the number of people in a room. If you can so when you're calibrating this now and going through setting these standards, what are they being set to what number in the room? Because right now we have half the number in the room or less.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. So I forget what the exact number is. I would have to get back to you on that, but it is a full capacity classroom number. So we will be balancing to that full capacity number. When we did our original 25% assessment, we looked at both a reduced capacity and the regular capacity. So I can see where you might have a question there, but we are going to be balancing to a full capacity So that will, satisfy the situations existing, and then again for the future as well.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I have a question, I guess, for the superintendent is, how is this work being paid for? Is this through grants? Is it through the local budget? Is it through the town?
We're going to be working with the town. I mean, technically, the contracts are awarded by the select board, and the town or the town manager will appropriate the funding either through the budget, or there may be a piece that needs to go to town meeting for some kind of one-time money. I have also let him know that, if we're eligible for like school reopening grants, there's some potential of that coming from Washington. And if it's earmarked towards, say, facility improvements, we certainly would participate and help with that, as well as even within our budget for this year, when we look at like one-time money for this year, that would be a good spending of the funds. And I said I was willing to recommend to the committee a portion come from that, depending on how much money we're going to have at the end of the year. So we don't have an actual allocation right now, but I think between Paul on the town side, us and the schools, potential grants, worst case scenario, a town meeting type vote, that's how we'll pay for it for the time being.
Thank you. All right, anybody else have any questions? No? Oh, all right, well, thank you.
Melissa, thank you very much for joining us tonight and sharing that.
Thank you.
Chris is a presenter.
Okay, moving on to our fourth kind of update for the evening. It's also another verbal update. Chris O'Donnell, our website. Ooh, did we lose him?
No, he's there. He's putting up his.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
He's projecting our Director of
Yep,
Communications.
he's our communications director. He's going to be joining us this evening to just share an update on the website development. As you know, that was one of our key projects for this year around communication, trying to make the site a little bit more user-friendly, providing a little bit more information. There's been a lot of work that's happening behind the scenes, so I'm happy that Chris is able to join us tonight. He's kind of pulling up some of the background proofs that have already been displayed, and he's going to walk us through that. So, Chris, if you want to jump in at any point, you're welcome.
Okay, everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So let me start first. This is our new look. I think it's a lot more attractive than our previous site, and it's got some great qualities to it. But let me start way up top. Our menu. Right here to the left, you can access any of the school websites, which we're currently working on. They're all nice and organized. Nice there. And then we separated, one of the things we wanted to do is separate the departments from the curriculum. So we've got the departments up here, and again, really, athletics being down here, that's a glitch. I have to fix that. But everything's nice and organized here. Looks really good. We've got a staff page that has all the tools that they need. I couldn't tell you half of what they do, but thank God, Bill Silver, with his help, he tells me what they can do. Yeah, so that's that page. And let me see here. Let me jump to the curriculum. Easily accessible here. There is a little bit of overlap. I think, there's health services down here, and I believe we have health services up here as well, but we made some overlap when we felt it was necessary, but still, I think it doesn't take away anything. I think everything is easily accessible and visible. In the meantime, I want to show you some pages here. Well, first, let me go through the front page. So this will be our picture window. It's not the greatest photo. I'm finding that we're a little short on campus photos. So in the spring, I hope to hire a photographer I know that will do some drone photography for us and get some good images once the snow disappears and the trees are in bloom. We'll get some terrific photos here. If you scroll down, this is called the Action Center, and this is going to hold, you see 4 bits of information in here right now. I believe the Action Center can hold as many as 12, and there's going to be some points in the year where we're going to need to put 12 announcements in here. But this is where we're soliciting, you know, if someone needs to register their student for kindergarten, here it is. Commencement information. These are just fillers for now, but what will also be here are sign up for fall sports. Any kind of announcement that we need action from is going to be right here. That's going to be that'll be good. And this, you know, there's only 4 boxes here. There's going to be on a regular basis, once we're, you know, things return to normalcy, there'll be probably 8, maybe sometimes more. And this is my favorite part because this symbolizes the direction I want the website to go. This is the news section. I very much like writing small features and telling the great stories of the students and staff at these schools. And I can't wait to continue to do so. I've got a list of ideas, but these are all going to go here. And the older ones will navigate over to this side. These are just kind of fillers right now. This will be an area for important reports and important documents. Still needs a little tweaking. This is another page. This was Jay's idea. That's fantastic. We're going to showcase all the areas where we're ahead of the curve, so to speak, in terms of the state of Massachusetts. I'm not sure if these numbers are accurate. I do have to get accurate numbers. Linda, I might have to tab you for that.
Yeah,
But,
I got a little nervous, Chris, when I saw some of these numbers. I'm like, okay, I think I higher. It's okay.
Yeah. So this is where we're going to do a little bragging about our school system here, right in this area here. It's going to be good. Another area, if we scroll down a little bit more, these are going to be our featured events. A couple of fillers in here. We have an SAT prep course that's taking place from February to May. Excuse me. So we're going to feature a couple of things here, and the upcoming events will be on this side. This area is actually dual purpose. If you click on the calendar, this calendar will be all-encompassing for all the schools. And Jay, I have to talk to you about this because this is going to involve a subscription. I don't know a whole lot about it, but Brian, our designer, does know. So we should get on a call this week. But this calendar is going to have every event from all 9 schools. That's pretty cool. Scrolling down, latest videos. This is an area I can't wait to utilize. A couple of weeks ago, I sat with Pete Padula for a couple hours and just kicking around ideas, and I can't wait to work with Chelmsford Telemedia to do little featuring things where these will go, and there's I really want to utilize video. So we're going to put all sorts of new videos down here. These are social pages that you'll be able to access. Right now, we're pretty much Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Eventually, I would like to build a LinkedIn page. I think LinkedIn is wonderful, totally different from these 3 social media platforms. And this will be the base page, your typical contact information, some information here. So that's the front page. Whenever someone logs on, that's what they're going to see. Let's go to the department pages. I've pretty much talked and met with every department head in the district. And they all said the same thing. The old website is clunky. You know, you have to scroll too far down to find anything. And I agree totally. The website just hasn't received a lot of love in the last couple of years. But a typical department page, I'll go to the business and finance page. I was working on this last week. There we go. And I still have to get Marilyn's okay with this. But, Joanna and I have to go over a couple things. But we want action items. right here. So we want the things that folks are looking for, we want to be front and center. So anything regarding the budget, facility rentals, financial reports, anything that they need, it's right here. So the old site, it's a little difficult in finding everything. I think this is a picture of efficiency right here. And it's also going to cut down on phone calls too. So that is our business and finance page. And so most of all of our department pages are based on this kind of format. I'll take you through another one real quick. The HR page. Excuse me. Cheryl and I met a few weeks ago, and this is going to be a project in itself. They get a ridiculous number of phone calls. Where can I find this? Where can I find that? We want to have everything here prioritized so that people can log on and see it and not have to bother Cheryl and her staff. So this is still a work in progress. We're getting there though. Excellent. Let me show you some of the curriculum pages here. And we'll go to Fine and Performing Arts. We've had some great talks with Christy. Same kind of format. Folks will be able to find everything down here. I need to put a photo there. We'll have the department contact on the left here. Any kind of social media, that's an option on the left-hand side too. I need to add a few things, but this is the gist of the page. Just a description and all the links that anyone could possibly be looking for. This is a link straight to Chelmsford Telemedia to Christie's show. She wanted that in, and I said, hey, we can do that. Looking forward to that coming back. Now let me get to our individual school pages. Right now, the south row is pretty close to completion. Let me get to that one. Okay. So these three links here, we're on the South Row homepage, about South Row. South Row will have a calendar that integrates with the main calendar on the district page. These all go to, these are all part of the district page. So these three menu items right here are South Row specific. So this will be South Row. We're, same kind of thing here. We're looking to post some impressive statistics down here. We're not exactly sure what to post, so I could use some input there. I know, I think teacher-student ratio might be a good one, but I could use a little help in finding out some impressive numbers, because it's not like we can have a, graduation rate to post there, because pretty much everybody graduates from elementary school. But
I'd hope
I'll
so.
need some stats here to put there. Action Center. Same kind of lineup. Any Action Center items that pertain to the South Row will be here and on the front page. It's all interactive. Got some news items that will be in here. Some old news items, but this is how it'll appear. On the right-hand side, parent resources, some student tools, staff directory, more school information down here, PTO. So, yeah, events, same kind of format. Videos. We're also, I don't know if we're going to do it for South Row, but we'd also like to think about posting the s'more newsletters in this space here. I think that would go well. Molly wasn't crazy about that idea, but and that's fine. But I think for the other schools, we might take the s'mores newsletters and post it. One thing I wanted to show you. Let me see if I can get to the staff. Staff directory. Yeah, our designer wanted me to show you the staff directory. So this is pretty cool. And we're going to have this for every school. So folks can jump, if they want to see who the administrators are, they can jump to any grade, guidance, reading, art, music, and they're also down here. All the teachers. Ideally, in a perfect world, I'd love to have head and shoulder shots of all our teachers. If that might be wishful thinking. I know we've got some staff that are a little camera shy, but I would love to have some photos there for everyone. So that's pretty cool, though. We're going to have this for every page. Moving on. Hold on one second. Let me get back to my itinerary here. Okay. Get back home. All right. So I've looked at I've looked at probably 100 websites, school websites, and they're all, some are better than others, but they're all pretty much informational, 99% informational. What I envision doing, I think I mentioned this on my last call with the committee, is I want it to be not just informational, but I want it to be interactional. I want to put up fun features. I want it to be a destination site where we can showcase the great things that the school district is doing. Another goal is just efficiency. On the current site, there are places where you have to scroll about 3 feet to access a document. And anybody that's got that kind of patience, God bless them. But we want to have everything front and center. So I've pretty much spoken to every department head, every as far as curriculum and every area, and they've all said, they all have the same complaint. The other side is not as functional as it should be. So efficiency is also very much the goal here. And I want this to be the best website in the state. I want people to look at our site and say, you know what, Chelmsford's doing it right. I want a site like Chelmsford. That's my goal for this site. And I love I'm a geek like this. I love the minutia of tweaking websites and going in the back end and fixing this and fixing that. To me, I kind of get lost in that. It's fun. So what's next? We still need to meet with the middle school principal and assistant principal to see about their pages, as well as Steve, the high school principal. Hopefully take care of that this week and early next week. We are going to do, hopefully within 2 to 3 weeks, a soft launch. We're going to launch. We're not going to tell anybody. We're just going to launch, and then we're going to take in all the feedback we can and just keep improving it, keep tweaking things so it's more efficient, it gets better, keep adding photos. We're always open for suggestions. Excuse me. So to the committee, I've shared some emails with Dennis, but anyone, if you want to offer your feedback, please do. You can email me. Everyone's got my contact information. Happy to listen. We all want the same goal here, and that's to have the best website possible. And that's it. Happy to take questions now. Go ahead.
Anyone have any questions?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm glad to hear you say that we're looking for an efficient website. I think this is one of the concerns of many of the parents, that sometimes they want,
Yes.
Information, and a lot of times it's about 10 minutes before your student's walking out the door to get the bus that you're looking for it. They want to be able to go to, some place where they can find the information quickly and, not have to scroll through a bunch of stuff, as you has mentioned. So I'm glad to hear that that's one of the goals of this. And I think anything that we can do to make sure that the information is readily available to parents, I think the more greatly it will be appreciated by the school community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things, that calendar that's gonna have all the events from the entire district,
Yes.
is that just automatically how is it gonna be populated?
There is if you want, I can go to the back end here.
No, that's okay. You can, it's all right, but I just here's my concern, to be honest with you. So my concern is that we have this wonderful tool, this wonderful calendar available, but that it's not current, that it doesn't populate all the information that it should, and so on. And that's just one piece of data, one piece of information. The other part of it is, how do we continuously update and make sure that the site has updated content, which is one of our greatest problems right now, in my opinion, on this website that we have now. Because we have a lot of, over the years, we've had a lot of outdated stuff. So how is that going to be done?
Go to the way to do the calendar is you create an event. And there's a way to schedule an event and schedule an expiry date, so it doesn't become overcluttered. Now, I know one of the questions I get is, what if there's 12 events on one day? Well, in instances like that, I may have to play traffic cop and say, okay, these take priority. These we're going to put off to the side, and we're going to share them on social media constantly. Maria, forgive me. You had a second question there.
Okay, so when you're looking at the calendar events and things that are going to be populated on that general calendar, are being input at the schools, for instance, and then who's putting in the information?
It'll probably be me.
Okay, so how does the information get to you? Because, for instance, okay, I've got a PTO night at South Row, and so for what do? Email you that I've got a PTO night?
Fortunately, I probably get 100 emails a day, and believe it or not, I look at them all.
Okay.
So I'm very cognizant of what I get and what needs to what's an event that we need to act upon.
Okay.
That's not going to cover 100% of it. I'm going to need help from whoever is hosting these events.
Okay.
Chris, I'm going to jump in for a second, just move this along a little bit. The individual schools are going to have people who are responsible for keeping their content up to date, interacting with Chris, helping with a calendar. If departments have something similar, Chris will be kind of our focal person for central office or the departments or whatnot, but it is going to have to be an effort of individual departments keeping their own information current, individual schools keeping their information current. So we will identify individuals within the buildings to do that. Chris will be the overseer and trying to make that master district calendar, look readable for the community, because you don't want to have too much stuff on there. I think that's where he's going to kind of have to be the referee sometimes to figure out what should get on the main calendar, what should be a side type thing. But that's all being worked out right now.
Okay.
Thanks, Jay.
You're welcome.
My question, since this is the main page, I go to, where is the school committee on the whole?
Oh.
We showed up a couple of times.
Yeah.
No school committee.
Right there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's
We do need some new pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah, you keep the picture the way it
I
was.
do need some updated photos. Okay, so here's the school committee page. So these, here we got down here, resources, that's a filler right now. Right now I've got the handbook right there. I've got the school committee meeting minutes that I have to, one by one, I have to import the PDF documents into that. Here, I've got 3 years of the agenda packets. I'm going to move these into one of these. And I'm also going to do the same with the goals. I'm going to move the goals down here. So this is going to disappear. So your page is going to be the intro here and about probably 6 to 9 of these blocks where you can find the agenda packets, you can find the goals, you can find the meeting minutes.
Are you going to include the policy link?
Yeah,
We need the policy link on there.
crucial.
Let me see.
How I
Right
manage
hand
Jay,
side
I
here.
need it. Sorry.
He's so unmanageable.
You need it in several places.
How we
He's so
manage.
unmanageable, you need to refer to them often.
Yeah, I'll show you that one, Chris. We have a link off that just goes to the MASC website. They house our policy manual. So we'll just have one of those buttons, basically, Beach Chelmsford School Committee policy. You click
And
on
it'll
it,
just drop.
and it will bring you to the other site.
Okay. I just want to make sure it's there.
It'll be on there.
I can implement that very easily.
Yep. Great.
All right, anybody else have any other questions? Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Chris,
And,
thank you
looking
very
forward
much.
to,
Chris.
Lunch.
Thank you, Chris. I just have one technical question.
night.
Do you leave this link open?
Chris, thank you very much.
Thank
All
you,
right, thank
Chris.
you.
All right, see you tomorrow.
Do you leave this link open for end of the comments, or do you reopen it
No,
again?
let me look real quick. No, we have nothing else camera-wise. You can shut down, because then Chelsea will tell me you'll just pick us up on the regular feed.
That's what I wanted to know. I didn't know if I had to keep this open.
No, you don't have to. Okay.
All right. That's the end of the presentation.
That's the end of the presentations for tonight. It's a lot of information. I think it's good information. We're just kind of this is kind of a catch-up meeting because we've had a couple of things on hold. But that is the end of the presentations. We still have several reports to go. But yes, we'll jump to item number 5 if we're okay. Does anyone need a break?
Yes.
If you want
All right, let's take a 5-minute recess. All right. Okay, great, let's do that.
posted to the website after our meeting. I usually review it with the school committee first, and then it goes up, so it's not included in the packet. If you're looking for it at home, it will go in the packet later on tonight. We followed a very similar format to what we've done previously, so I'll just kind of walk you through the budget format. I think it's gone over very well. It's been well received in the schools. The community seems to understand it at this point in time. I did share a lot of this information when we had the tri-board meeting, so I'm not going to go through the narrative piece, but you can read through that as you go. As always, I kind of talk a little bit about what net school spending is, because as a district, people hear that in education kind of jargon quite a bit. What you're going to see is a trend in the overall narrative is we're among our comparable districts and even districts across the state. When it comes to spending, we're in about the middle. We're about average of our comparable districts. You can see that in 2019, as far as how much districts spend per pupil, there were 320 districts, and we were 180th for spending. So we're certainly not spending the most. We're certainly not spending the least. I think what we do spend on education, we certainly get a good return on our investment. We manage the funding very well. It really does go to support our initiatives. We try to have our budget document line up, again, to kind of match what our interests are. So on page 2, we do take a look at our comparable districts. Again, this is something that we don't come up with. DESE looks at every year. They tell us who our 10 most comparable districts in the state are, and then we go through a process of analyzing some of the financial information from each of those 10 districts, as well as some of the performance categories. Again, page 3, page 4, we talked a little bit about net school spending again on this one. So we're in the top half of the 10 districts on net school spending. In 2019, we spent 36.5% above what our net school spending amount is. Sometimes that, because you only, obviously by the statute, you only have to meet net school spending. There were only a handful, 6 or 8 districts across the state that spent at or below net school spending. So at this point in time, everyone is spending more, basically, and it's a percentage of how much more is what you're gauging. So again, we're right in there at 36.5. We're in the top half of our comparable districts. Student-teacher ratio, this is something, oh, go ahead.
I still think back to that presentation by Mr. Hatch.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if we could reference it. I know it's a big presentation at some point in here so that people could look at it, because I think it really highlights how much of this is out of our control.
You know, yeah, short answer is yes. We did include that as an appendix in last year's budget because we had done it at that time.
Right, I remember,
I didn't put it in this year just because we had done it last year. But I certainly can do that for like when we produce the town meeting budget books.
Great.
The other thing I could do is reach out to Roger Hatch and just see if he could update his analysis and just put the fiscal, would it be 20 at this point, right? Put the fiscal 20 data into the report and just do an update for us so that we can kind of on a yearly basis keep track of that. I don't think that would be too difficult to do, and I bet we could get that in there for the April printing.
That would be great, because like I said, I think that there's an awful lot of this is out of our hands, that it is generated by a formula.
It's a formula, and we really,
The more that we can help people understand that.
Yep.
And then why you can't draw comparisons to some of our neighboring towns.
Okay.
But why we don't get more. I mean, it is a question, but it's formula-based.
Right. Yeah, no, I would be happy to do that. It's not here today, but I can certainly do that for you.
In that update, if there's any way that we could create a small dashboard that shows the key components of how we get, for example, I think the whole thing about the population of the neighbor versus ours and how many children are there versus here and so on is something that, most people don't think about when they think about the funding and why ours might be less. But just some synopsis that would make it really, a person looks at that and just says, okay, here it is, this is what it is. It would be great.
Let me ask him, and I'll see what he could kind of put together for
Yeah,
us.
he's highly respected.
Oh, he's excellent, yeah.
Highly respected.
So on page 5, again, I just touch on student-teacher ratios. This is fiscal 20 data. Again, we're right in the middle of the pack on this particular metric. Average teacher salaries on the top of page 6. Now, we do have 2 or 3 new comparable districts in this grouping. We hadn't been grouped with Burlington previously, so that's kind of an outlier in the group. But we are in the bottom third of our districts as far as average teacher salary. Now, we did take a step. It'll be interesting because this is a year ago's data. We did take a step in our last negotiations with the teachers where we added a step at the top of the grid and then we reapportioned. So we may see a little bit of a bump from that when we report our data next year. But that's obviously something that we want to keep an eye on because we want to be competitive and we want to make sure that that's something also, at least in the middle of the pack, if not the top half. I don't really want to be in the bottom half. So that's something to keep an eye on. Per pupil expenditures right at the bottom of the page. Again, we're right in the middle of that grouping. We are, again, it's kind of significant statewide. The state actually spends more money per pupil than we do, but among our comparable districts, we are right in the middle of the pack. And then, again, these are some of the slides I showed just because we do talk so much about the finances. And again, we're middle of the pack finance-wise, but when it comes to performance, we really do outperform, obviously, the state, but as well as our comparable districts. So I just shared with you the science and at the high school, the ELA and the math scores from 2019. We're not going to have data for 2020 because we didn't do MCAS last spring. So I'm going to have to come up with a creative way to show, how we're stacking up with our comparables a year from now. But in a nutshell, again, when we had our tri-board meeting a couple weeks back, this is before the end of January, we were looking to put together basically the town side as well as the school side, what a level service budget would be. We have typically, for the last 3 years, been going up about $2 million a year, and that $2 million a year covers all of the costs of our contracts, all of our recurring costs for operating the school district, any of our non-personnel contracts like our transportation contract or out-of-district tuitions, things along those lines. It costs us about $2 million. 2 years ago, we were at 61. Last year, when we put everything into effect, we were going to go to 63, just for the viewing audience. We ended up taking a reduction, as well as the town took a reduction, because we didn't know what was going to be happening with COVID and state funding and whatnot. So we ended up going down to 61.6. We didn't go to the 63 last year. We didn't really reduce our budget to get to that 61.6. What we used is some one-time funding to basically get down to that level. And then when the state funding did come in at the expected amount, we didn't see a reduction there. I had assumed we were starting from that, what should have been the 63 to go to 65, because we need that $2 million to keep going. Obviously, at the time we had that first meeting, the town manager was adding $2 million, but he was adding it from the 61.6. We've since met, we've worked through his recommended budget for the town. He did, when he made that recommendation at the end of March, recommend that we go to the 65, so that additional $1.3 million was added. We're very grateful for that because that would have been a cut scenario for us, and we weren't impacting that. And I think one of the things that we have said is it's certainly not going to be less expensive to educate the kids next year, coming out of the pandemic than it is this year. So I was very happy he was able to work with us on that. One of the things that I did say, and we mentioned a little bit earlier under the HVAC assessment, is if we do have some one-time money this year that we don't need to close the year, I'm happy to recommend to you that we try to help the town, pay for some of the HVAC assessment, pay for some one-time costs so that we can defer some money for next year, help with a capital project. So we can have those discussions as we get deeper into the springtime. But I'm happy that our base budget hopefully will be set at the 65. That'll really help us as we go to a year from now into 23. So from a 22 standpoint, I'm very happy with that. As you know, over the last number of years, we've actually made significant investments in the schools. We have added a good number of staff members at the elementary, the middle, the high school level. We've added a significant amount of programming, whether it be the behavioral program at the elementary school, the Strive program over at South Row. We added that at the middle school this past year. We've added some BCBAs, some additional special education teachers last year. This budget is a level service budget. So in this budget that's presented for the coming year, I think we're actually in a very good place. I think it's going to take us a couple of years to kind of come out of this pandemic and see where we're at. This budget does not add additional positions or services. Similar with the town, it is a level service budget. So you're going to actually see less bullets here than you normally do, but I'm going to walk you through those. And even when you go through the budget pages, and I'll explain them to you, you will see less notes, because I used to go through the budget document and put notes on different pages where we're adding things. There's really not a lot of adding going on. So that's the reason why there aren't a lot of notes. It's pretty self-explanatory. The programs are already there. What this budget does do is takes into consideration the fact that we have all of our collective bargaining agreements and contracts in place for next July, which is really a nice luxury to have as we're setting the budget. So we know what the steps and lanes are. We know what the salary schedules are going to be. We have taken into consideration any of our teaching staff and professional staff who are retiring at the end of the year. We've gone in and we've taken a reduction in the budget, the salary line, so we're not carrying too much money. We, for the last 3 or 4 years, have found that averaging a master's step 3 is appropriate during the hiring process. Some might come in at 1, some might come in at 6. In the end, it works for us. So that offset has already been taken and incorporated into the budget. One area that I did add a little bit of additional funding in the budget this year is we had talked about the need for some targeted intervention and tutoring. Last year, we had not full-time positions, but just some stipended money, some hourly money to be able to send in, say, a teacher, an interventionist, to help at the elementary and the middle schools in particular around ELA or math, things along those lines. I've increased that line item a little bit to be able to provide some additional targeted assistance next year if we identify kids that are struggling and are going to need, we're on page 10.
What page?
10.
Okay.
If they're struggling or in need of some services. So, you know, that is in the budget here. We have carried forward the continuation of the one-on-one initiative. Obviously, we've invested in a lot of technology for the current year that we're in, but we do have funding incorporated in this budget to provide the incoming 5th and 9th grade students with their Chromebook. Then a year from now, we'll do that again, and we'll be on a cycle where every 4 years, every student in grades 5 to 12 will receive a new device. So that's in here. And I do want to make note that we're doing this without impacting the local operating budget. We've been able to utilize the school choice funds as a revenue offset for that, and we do have that incorporated. One small reduction that I have also incorporated here within the budget is we've been tweaking the fees that we charge for activities over the last number of years. Our high school and middle schools have gone down by $25 increments each year. Our middle schools, both Parker and McCarthy, and you heard McCarthy talk earlier today, they're currently at $50 a year for a fee. This budget, I did include some money to bring the high school to match that. So the high school would also go down to $50 per year. You know, this was the first year anyone even made notice of it, because at the the middle school level, when they went to high school, they were saying, well, there's only 50 there. Why is it higher at the high school? So I think this would actually be, it was a nominal adjustment in the budget, but I think it'll be nice for students for consistency purposes to be able to have that. Again,
Can I just say 2 things, please?
Yeah.
So I think we have done a lot to try and relieve some of the burden that families feel financially for things like supplies, parking fees, you know, these activity fees and things like that. And I don't know if we can put it in the budget, or if, I do think at some point we have to highlight, though, that this is a burden that the district is assuming, which we're happy to do, to relieve the financial burden for parents. But I don't think that, like, I was thinking back to Tri-Board, and, you know, that wasn't one of the things that came up. You know, there was a lot of concern about, you know, the money that we spend, but I don't think there was a lot mentioned about how much that we try to help families out by relieving them of some of these costs. So I don't know where to put it, but I just do think it's worth mentioning. And also with regards to the staffing, I don't know if we can improve our personnel report, because I think sometimes it looks like we hire, but they're actually replacing people that may have left. Do you know what I'm saying? And so to make sure that so people understand, it's like a one-for-one, you know, type of situation. But beyond that, sometimes we are going to have staff that we're going to have to hire because, for example, we may have a student that comes in with exceptional needs. Correct. That may need, you know, a one-to-one paraprofessional or some type of additional resources. And we have to put that in place. That is not, it's not negotiable. You know, if the law requires that we do that, then we have to do that. And I think we also have to make sure that people are aware of that too. That some of the staffing things that we do are because we're obligated to do so. you know.
No, I agree with you. I mean, to that point, even, I think it was the 2 years ago when we added the Strive program, I mean, that was a decision we made because we wanted to be able to keep that population in district. It was actually more cost effective to be able to hire staff. We had to hire teachers and BCBAs and paras to support the kids, as opposed to having them go to out-of-district placements. But there's a trade-off. So you absolutely have to hire those bodies if you're going to make the program sustainable. But I think what you'll see even when we look at our SPED numbers, we're actually spending less on out-of-district tuitions. We're managing that very well, but you had to hire the staff. This budget, I think we're in a very good place as far as our known populations of students. We could get a move in, that is not expected next year. That's why we built up a little bit of the circuit breaker revolving fund as a kind of a safety net for us, that if we had to float a tuition for a year, we could, and then we can readjust a little bit later. Similarly, there could be a time where you do have to hire an extra para, say if a student, even one of our students now, goes through the IEP process and it's determined that they need additional support, we would have to hire that support. And then we would have to find a funding source to match that. I think I was just trying to say that as a base, as we look to start the year, we're not adding like a new program that would have significant new staff associated with it. Those other little tweaks are gonna kind of come and go as the year goes on.
Yeah, I was thinking about our presentation to FinCom to kind of clear up some of these misconceptions that may be out there around, how it is that we go about staffing. Because, you're right, we put these programs in place. But we're also obligated to follow the law in terms of the student-to-staff ratio. We don't just choose a number, all right? There's a number that we have to abide by.
Right.
And I think that when we're making that presentation, if, like I said, if there's things that we can do to clarify, people's understanding of what we're doing, then I think we're going to be better off.
Sure. Okay. So again, that's kind of my overview on the narrative. When you switch to page 12, again, this is your summary level data. So these are all your DESI function codes. And what we are showing is a 3-year trend. We got to the point where we're very comfortable with this. And you'll see that our budget is jumping from the 61.6 up to 65 for next year. Again, you can see we haven't added a position. It actually on paper is reflecting that we're down 0.4 of an FTE. We haven't, reduced anyone. That was the reorg that we did within the HR office. There was a full-time position that was reduced to a 0.6 because some of the other salary was used to offset and augment another position. So technically, we're showing a 0.4 loss of a position. There was no lost position. It was the fact that we reallocated when we were hiring for a different position. So again, you can kind of look through that. Ultimately, what we'll do the Tuesday after vacation when we have the budget hearing is start on page 13. And we'll go page by page through the budget and ask questions and have debate and dialogue about the funding, where it's coming from. In the end, if we make any adjustments, it would get updated in the chart, and then page 12 automatically updates. So in the end, you would come back and actually make a vote to adopt a $65 million request for town meeting. Again, you do have purview not only at the meeting at the end of the month, but over the course of the year, we can make budget adjustments. From time to time, Joanna, will bring in a recommendation for a transfer. If we need to shift funds from one account to another to cover something, or we want to do something new, we can do that within the budget. But we'll go through pages 13 to 49 when we meet on the Tuesday after the vacation. What we've also done, starting on page 50, just to be consistent, is that staff salary book, which is a nice crosswalk up to the main document. So any of the positions that are listed under personnel on the top of each of these pages, crosswalk from the back page 50. So you see the full FPE, which is full position equivalent, in the salaries. Again, that's just been useful, and that ends on page 61. And then we have a few appendices that we've traditionally kept. Appendix 1 is on page 62. That just gives you the student enrollment figures from October 1. Again, it's been helpful. Appendix B on page 66 is the student activities and clubs. And again, Joanna does just a nice job of kind of showing which clubs pay a fee, which don't pay a fee. And then you will see a work paper on 68 that kind of tracks, even at the bottom of that as a note, some of the assumptions we took in fiscal 20, 21, and 22, when we modified some of those fees. So to Donna's point earlier, because I know we've done this adjustment, we've done a couple of other adjustments, maybe we could come up with a separate document that would just kind of track year to year some of the fee reductions that we've been able to make to just kind of highlight that. Appendix C is a report that you're familiar with seeing. It's just our grant summary. And then on page 72 is our revolving and other account summaries that you're, again, typical to see. So I will, this is where we had Appendix E last year, was that Roger Hatch report. So I will ask him if we can get that updated, how long it would take, and I feel confident we can get that in there by the time we do the spring printing. I don't think I'll be able to have that for 2 weeks from now when we review the base document, but I think that's actually more important for the public as they're reviewing the document for April. But we'll ask him how quickly he could work on that for us. But, I ask you just to take a look at the document, kind of read it through, come up with questions. If you have any concerns or you'd like additional information to back up a number or to back up a recommendation, if you reach out to me ahead of time, I'm happy to provide it just so that you can have the information the night that we do the budget hearing. That night, obviously, you can answer questions too. It just might take me a little bit of time to pull something together for you as a backup. But I actually feel very strongly, I think this is a good budget for us for fiscal '22. Again, it is a level service budget. It does not cut any services, any programs, any staff. I think coming out of a pandemic, this is actually a good position to be in. What we'll also do, we just don't know right now, is utilize any additional grants that we may receive either from the federal government to the state government or channel through to provide those targeted interventions and services next year. Again, we don't know what that number is going to be, but that would be the source of any kind of one-time infusion that we have to put in to try to help address any learning gaps or hire even temporary staff or, contracted services, things along those lines. And as we know more about those grants, we'll certainly let you know.
You're going to have this posted to the website after the meeting?
Yeah.
And so our next meeting is also a time where the public can make, if they have some
Oh,
questions
sure.
or comments, that's where they have an opportunity to do the same. So if they want to email us or want to speak, or that would be their opportunity if they do
That
have
is
some
our
comments.
public hearing date.
Yep.
So maybe we
Yeah.
could put that up on a couple of places or,
Yep.
social media sites or whatever, so people will know.
Yep, the budget itself I'll get up later on tonight.
I meant the date of it.
No, I know, I
yeah.
was just gonna say, we do have to post that in the newspaper, so it'll appear the next 2 weeks in the newspaper.
Okay.
And then we can actually kind of link that feed to the social media sites, just so that people see it.
So that'll be the 23rd?
The Tuesday after
Yeah,
vacation?
23rd.
What are
Yes,
the dates again?
the 23rd.
23rd is when our next meeting will be, and that will be for going over the budget and
Yeah.
for, if public has any comments or questions, that would be their opportunity to do that.
Okay, and are we having a public input session on it at all?
That would be
Yeah,
that night.
That would be that night.
Okay, that night.
That'll be part of that meeting. It'll be a regular meeting, but the main focus will be on the budget.
Okay, and is it going to be, what are we using as a technology tool for this?
What's that?
So, for public input, for
Oh, it'd be
people-
like our go-to-meeting? It would be like someone just
Same
reaching out to me.
go-to-meeting thing
Yep.
that you've had in the past, okay.
They would reach out to me to just get a link sent to them so that they could join and make a statement.
Okay,
Yeah.
Or they could email,
They could
if they
email
have any
too.
questions that they'd like us to
all right.
ask.
Something regarding this, but is it, okay with you? One thing it seems to point out is that, coming out of this year and moving into next year, that we're gonna be looking for, one-time type of help, with tutors and interventionists and so on. So is every other district in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, very likely. So, I'm wondering if this is something that, are we waiting for this budget to be finally approved at a town meeting and so on to try to find these individuals and have these people in place, or how are we doing this?
Yeah, what we'd have to do, we wouldn't be hiring for those kind of positions throughout the spring anyway. Typically, those would be hires that would take place after the start of the school year. We have to also identify like where the needs are gonna be and what the gaps are gonna be to figure out, what might be the best person to help out. We do have a very strong interventionist model now. At the schools, we utilize Title I funding and other funding sources. Retired staff are an excellent resource for us. Oftentimes, even people, within, a year or, a lot of times people do retire, they kind of take that first year off, and then year two, they're looking to do something. We've been very fortunate to be able to hire some retired folks to be interventionists, or in this frame, like a tutor, to go in a few days a week, so many hours a week, to be able to kind of work with, bless you, small groups. So we'd be doing that again, but that hiring really wouldn't take place until the fall.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I understand what you're saying in terms of hiring from retirees and so on, who have been through our system. I think this is a very different year because by that point, hopefully we know more what's happening with vaccination and with, our own teams here being vaccinated and all of that.
Right.
Because I can see people hesitating to return to a setting if they don't have to. Because a lot of retirees sometimes don't have
Yeah,
to.
it could be.
They do it because they want to, as an extra thing for themselves. So I think it's going to be difficult going into this coming year to make sure that our needs are filled, just like everybody else is going to be competing for a small
Right.
group of people.
On the permanent staff to the district, we always do, but we'll start that process around March 1st. So any of the positions that we know are vacant from a retirement, we will start hiring on those, ASAP. We really want to get all those positions locked up as quick as we can. We've got good feeders out to the community and even the colleges that are graduating students come the springtime, to be able to get a lot of those positions filled. Our goal would be to leave school in June with all of the known positions filled, and then over the summer, we could kind of start focusing on some of those additional needs we may have.
Okay.
We have been fortunate also, not everyone coming out of school gets a job right out of the gate. We have been fortunate to hire some people even for that first year, say in an interventionist or a tutoring role. They kind of get their feet wet. We also get to see how they work out with us, and sometimes that can be a very good long-term relationship. It is going to be a task this coming year, but we're aware of it.
Okay.
Other comments or questions on the budget thus far?
Thank you for 2357.
Say again?
Thank you for 2357, professional development. Earmarking that money.
Oh, yes, well, we'll talk about that at the other one, but I think that'll be a good step in the right direction.
I just want to thank you and Joanna and the rest of your staff for putting this together, and also to thank the Select Board and the Finance Committee for being very supportive of the schools at the Tri-Board meeting, and for the town manager, finding a way to make sure that the schools are fully funded and able to maintain the great service that we have, so, I think that's important.
Yeah, no, it is a group effort. Obviously Joanna in the business office, the town manager and his staff, and in the end, we do come together to really put together a good, not only product, but a good budget for the town and the schools. We still don't know what's going to happen with town meeting this spring, but I think whenever it does get passed, we'll be in a very good shape for next year. And again, we'll talk about this a little bit on the 23rd or 24th, whatever that Tuesday is. We're in very good shape as far as our reserves are concerned. We've built up reserves for special education, again, those extraordinary costs that sometimes you just can't estimate that are going to come in. We have the school choice set aside. We've earmarked it for the technology initiative, but again, that's an account that can be used for multiple sources. Our food accounts are in good shape. Our other grant and revolving funds are in good shape. We're going to have some one-time money this year. We'll very likely, again, the one account that's not doing great, it's fine, but it is the turf field account because we can't rent the turf fields. So we'll likely recommend using some of the one-time money this year to make that payment, just so that the turf field revolving fund doesn't get close to going in the negative. And I don't think anyone could, I think that's a very understandable thing. It's not that they're underperforming, we just can't rent them because we haven't had the ability. And, we've only got a number of years, too, before the bonds are totally paid up, both the principal and interest. And then we can actually start building up some reserves in that account. But I'm very, very fortunate and I think happy with where we are operationally and financially. I think this is a good budget for you to take a look at. we're always happy to talk about it and discuss it because it really does mirror what we're going to try to do in the schools for the following year. But I think we'll be in good shape, and hopefully you'll be pleased with the recommendations.
All right, very good.
Good. All right.
COVID update.
COVID update. So COVID is still here. One of the things that was a little disappointing, I'll be quite honest with you, was when educators were moved down the prioritization list again for the vaccines. We have been, kind of waiting to try to get back to more in-person school. I think there are several factors that are affecting that, obviously, and it's a real concern. Staff are still concerned about, health and wellness, and we all are, for staff and students. I was really hoping that by the end of January, February 1st at the latest, we would have been prioritized to be able to kind of get that first shot going. I think the vaccine in combination with pool testing, if we're able to get that off the ground, and a bunch of other factors, could allow us potentially later on this spring to start introducing more in-person schooling. When the educators got bumped down from, I get the 75 and older, but the 65 and older is one above us now, and the vaccine rollout is just going so slow, I just don't know when we're going to be able to get our first shots. So it's something that we continue to work with the Board of Health on. Sue Rose has been great. It's not her at all. And she's ready. I mean, she's been doing clinics for our first responders and now 75s and olders. As soon as we can get that vaccine, Sue and even our nurses will help. We'll be able to get the educators in for their first doses and, hopefully a month later get the second ones. And I think that's going to be a game changer for us. We just don't know exactly when that's going to happen. We did proactively reach out to all of our staff with an update. Again, I thought it was going to be happening a little bit sooner, but we've pre-registered them all. I have all the information I need for them. We have over 700 of our staff have signed up for the vaccine when we get it. So I've been able to provide Sue with all that information by school so we can be very quick and efficient. We have everything that we need. It's just a matter of kind of waiting. So that is kind of the status on the vaccines. As soon as I know more, obviously, we'll let our staff know, and we'll let you know. But that's one of the kind of linchpins to trying to get back to more normal for this spring, but certainly this fall. And then there's still the question of only the Pfizer vaccine is actually for 16 and older. So some of our high school kids may benefit from that. The Moderna one is 18 and older, so we're really not going to see a big benefit schooling-wise from that one. I don't know when the trials for all the kids will be done. I think I've heard anecdotally that they're looking at like 10 or 12 and older, but that's still not going to cover the elementary population, so it's still a little bit of a waiting game. I just was kind of hoping we were going to be in a better place. We are starting internally to talk about, spring as well as the fall, because we want the fall to hopefully be a more traditional, normal school year. So we are having those conversations, regardless of the other unknowns. But we're really just kind of waiting for some dates for that vaccine. So that's kind of the COVID update. We are taking a look, again, just anecdotally I can tell you, how to start bringing some more kids back to school for longer times. I don't have an exact time frame because of these other factors. But what's being looked at and discussed is, going from the 3/4 day up to a full day. Do we use those Wednesdays and rotate them, whether it's the half day or the full day? Plans and all the pros and cons and the obstacles, are all being worked out. Again, it just would have been much nicer if we kind of knew, all right, here's the vaccine timeline, here's the testing, how it's going to come online, and could put a whole package together. But that is in the works right now.
Where is the pool testing at this point? I know we talked about it last meeting.
We're still in the form process, so we're still filling out applications. We weren't a district that did the, I forget the name of the test. Biogenics?
No, it's Binex.
Binex.
Binex, yeah.
So we
After
first have
Binex.
to get approved to be able to do that, because that's the test that if you ever had a pool that came up positive, you've got to be able to get the that pool quickly retested to kind of clear them. So we're in the process of trying to get that completed, and then obviously the state is still working on trying to set up the different partners that they're going to have for the phases. It's looking to me more like around March, early March timeframe is when most districts will be implementing that. Because we're not meeting until the 23rd, if I do get any information over the next week or so, I'll just shoot you an email with a little update about where we're at in the process. But the first thing we have to do is get our
Bye next now.
the process taken care of. One of the things I know we talked about, I just put on to continue talking about, is the close contact definition. We decided to have a discussion about that at the last meeting, to kind of just keep on the front burner, because as we get a little bit later into the agenda, and we take a look at like how our kids are doing grade-wise and even attendance-wise this year, one of the things that the schools have also been working on, but identifying, is kids that are really struggling in this model. And, remote learning has actually worked for a number of kids that, we probably didn't know remote learning would work for. And it also hasn't worked for a number of kids. We see some kids that are engaging on the 2 days that they're in school, but they're really struggling on the other 3 days. So even our, more so at the middle school and the high school level, but, let me speak for the middle school. Both McCarthy and Parker, have kind of identified, some really struggling students, say at the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level, that they need to re-engage and that are having difficulty with the remote. One option that they're looking at and they would like to explore is when we prioritize kids to be able to come in for more in-person learning, we don't have a lot of seats open in these classrooms because we have, most are filled. We're not going to overstack the classrooms. We said we wouldn't do that. We're not going to. But they could potentially set up an alternate site within the school, whether it's another classroom or a CAF or a gym, and even set up workstations that are 10 feet apart, so that potentially the kids could come in on, so for argument's sake, if you have 30 fifth graders that you're concerned about, half are probably going to be A and half are B. So you really get 15 kids at McCarthy, let's say, in the 5th grade that you're concerned about. If those 15 kids who are in cohort A, right, they're in Monday, Tuesday, if they could take the bus, because we have capacity, and come into the building on Thursday, Friday, and report to the kind of the work center, to at least have the structure and someone kind of getting them online to make sure they're working, they could remotely participate in their class, but have kind of some eyes on them, some supports on them, to be able to do that. I think both schools are looking at that as an option to kind of re-engage that group. One of the things that is going to be incredibly difficult, and it almost makes it unworkable if we keep the existing definition we have, is we potentially, if, say, a student in cohort A on Tuesday were to test positive, and they came into the testing center on, we're going to call it, not the testing center, but the support center, let's say, on Thursday, then they would potentially be a close contact under our definition to other people, even if they're 6 or 10 feet apart in the testing center. And because there'd be mixed classrooms in the support center, you could take out the whole 5th grade in one shot, as opposed to just one classroom having to go out under our definition. So I'm leery about looking at that if we weren't looking at whatever that definition is, because it would get to the point where now we're impacting say in that case, the entire 5th grade would have to go out because we've deemed them a close contact. Because if Jay, the struggling student, is now in the support center, he's now got close contacts that are in every other class in the 5th grade. It would wipe out the whole 5th grade. So it's just, it's problematic. And again, I just want to kind of continue that conversation, because if we're going to try to get kids back in, provide supports or even target supports to some of these really struggling students, the way we have been categorizing just blanketly, sending out the whole class as the close contact, is going to hurt efforts to try to bring kids back in.
So, thoughts? We kind of said we wanted to give it 2 weeks and kind of see where the numbers are going. They seem to be trending down. I know today's numbers, the state was under 2,000. It was up over 6,000 at the beginning of the month. Even in Chelmsford's down 2% over the last couple of weeks. So I don't know what people's thoughts are at this point. We can have that discussion, and if there's consensus one way or the other, we can make a decision.
Look, can we just start with like what we agree upon and what we know, okay? What we can agree upon is that safety is paramount and the kids need to be in school. No one's arguing that point at all, okay? What we know is our HVAC isn't ready. Vaccines aren't happening right now. We're still waiting on that, and we're still waiting on the pool testing, okay? that's what we know that's still out there for us. Our current guidelines, based on the masks, our incredible maintenance work that our custodial staff has done, and hand washing, has kept us in school far longer than we thought we were going to be. Okay, I mean, same as, you know, we heard here mentioned tonight, I was surprised we made it past November 1st, and I think that it's just been a phenomenal job on everybody's part. I think some of my concerns around the how we define close contact is there's some things that I'm not really completely clear on. So, for example, teachers float around the classroom, okay? How are they going to monitor how long they're spending with one student in a 60-minute period while they're trying to teach a lesson, help students, and deal with the remote hybrid and remote sprinkled students that they're supposed to be dealing with? I mean, that's a lot to put on a teacher. And who will make the decision, okay, about who is within 6 feet and who wasn't? Will that be an administrator or will it be the teacher? And if I was the teacher, I would err on the side of caution and say, I was within 6 feet of everybody. I don't know how long exactly I spent with one person or another. So I would be the person going out, at least, right? So now we have some kids who may remain in school, a teacher who's going out, and some students from that classroom are going out. And how are we going to deal with a situation like that?
Want me to respond?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. That was a rhetorical question. Yeah. So.
I mean, a couple of things. You'd have to take these situations on a case-by-case basis, right? It's not to say that in a particular situation, even like a particular classroom, or a particular level, right? Here's an example. Let's say a life skills classroom, just for argument's sake, right?
Yeah.
The teacher may, just by default, be spending more significant time because those kids might be in the classroom longer than just one period, and they might be in need of more services, so they're a little bit more hands-on. You'd have to have a dialogue with the teacher to kind of figure out, you know, have they really been that close to the student? Have they been in that close of proximity? And maybe you still have that whole class go out because of that unique situation. Let's say, counter to that, let's just say it's a class at the high school. Regular class, you know, teachers 10 feet away, not even 6 feet away, teaching. And you talk to that teacher and you say, you know, have you, so-and-so, Jay, has tested positive or whatnot. You know, were you with him for more than 15 minutes during your, 40-minute class or whatever when you were in there? And if I know, no, I absolutely wasn't. You know, Jay sits in the back corner. He was pretty independent. You know, he didn't do anything with me. He only really affected the 2 kids that were near him. That would be a situation where, no, the teacher wouldn't have to go out. If we got in a situation, where the teacher, let's say, did have to go out and the kids didn't, oftentimes if the teacher's going to be out and let's say it's a middle school classroom or an elementary school classroom, it's easier to just have the whole class day out. Because if the teacher is out, and this has happened, the teacher's going to be remote for the week. Instead of having half the kids remote and half the kids in, we've just moved the whole class to be remote. Just operationally, it's easier. So that could still happen. I think what this provides is some level to kind of on a case-by-case basis, working with the staff, assess, is there a true close contact under the CDC definition, and act accordingly. The staff would have to be involved, the individual teacher, the school administration, our nurse, and ultimately Sue Rosa from the Board of Health and her staff. They're the ones that are identifying who the close contacts are following the CDC guidelines.
So I'm glad you brought up the Board of Health, because I think one of the things that I would feel more comfortable with is actually having a conversation with them before we make any changes. And the reason is this: they're the medical experts. We're not. And I want some reassurance from them that this decision that we're making is actually a safe decision, that that it's something that we can manage, that will be carefully monitored, and in light of the fact that we're still waiting on these other things, that we're not going to put anybody at risk. And I think the parents would like to hear from the Board of Health too.
On those other things, though, I don't, number one, we're in school, right?
Yep.
I think we took a very aggressive look this fall, say, on the HVAC. We've upgraded our filters. We're going through this whole assessment. It's not that we're not in school waiting for that to be done. We're in school now because the systems we have, the filters we have, are there and they're functioning, they're working, we want to tweak the amount of airflow that's going through them. But that, you know, I'm not talking about putting more students in a classroom.
Right.
So that really wouldn't affect that. What was the other one you had mentioned? You had like 2 or 3 things. that
The
we were-
vaccination, the pool testing, the HVAC.
Well, but I mean, again, like we're in school now, we don't have the vaccination. Everyone wants it, but I don't think we can just wait for the vaccine.
Well, I agree, but we're talking about changing things, okay? We know that it works under the current sort of circumstances. You know, why would we change it if we know that this is working now, in light of the fact that those things aren't online yet?
Because all of our data to date would support that even if we weren't working under the current guidelines and we were working under the CDC definitions, it would still be working. Because again, I just mentioned, like, we've over-identified who the close contacts are. And if those cases were coming back and they were positive, we'd have an issue. But they haven't, because again, we've been casting too wide of a net. If we ever got to the point where, you know, we were starting to see positive cases, yeah, we'd want to pull back and, you know, reassess where we're at. But, you know, all of our students and all of our staff who have gone out for this testing, because we've identified them as close contacts, you know, are not testing positive. So I think that is kind of the data that would support it. And we do have very open and honest conversations, you know, myself, Peggy, our nurse coordinator, Sue, talking about these various issues. And it's not that we're operating in a bubble. You know, we float these ideas by them, we discuss it with them. I spoke with Sue, and Sue supports this.
I
Peggy
completely agree,
supports
but
this.
we haven't spoken with
Yeah,
Sue.
well,
We haven't spoken.
I did.
That's not us.
Well, I'm just saying, I talked to her, I called the Board of Health just to find out what their close contacts, what do they define as close contacts, and they use the 6 foot, 15-minute, and I didn't mean to get Sue, I just wanted to know, and Sue called me back, and I asked her, I said, what do you think of this, as a, you know, as the Director of Health and, you know, a member of the Board of Health, what is your thoughts? And she said, you know, we started out very conservative, things have ended up working great, and as the superintendent just said, you know, even if we had the 6 foot from the beginning, we still would have the same results based on the testing. It wouldn't have changed, you know, who got the virus, you know, who we're testing and what the results were. It still would have been the same. And I agree, we're doing a great job, we're here February, but if we had gone with 6 feet from the beginning, we'd still have the same close contacts not spreading. You know, it wouldn't have changed anything. But Sue said that she's very comfortable with the 6 foot. I mentioned having the Board of Health in. She said, to be honest with you, you know, we love to be cooperative, but we're straight out. We're straight out, and, you know, we're using the 6 foot distance, and, you know, we're going all day with these vaccinations. We have our meetings at night because, you know, we'd love to cooperate, but, you know.
I mean, I understand that they're straight out, but they're also public officials and they're answerable to the public. And I think it makes sense to have them answer questions from parents and teachers or anybody else that wants to ask a question.
My concern is that we push this off to next meeting, or they can't make the next meeting, and we push off the next meeting.
Do a special
Now
meeting.
we're April.
Yeah, do a special meeting.
Have a special remote meeting next week.
I don't
Can we-
think they
additional
understand
input.
all the.
Okay, I honestly, I agree with everything that Donna said. Here's my greatest concern. The parents made a decision to send their child, I did, to send mine, in a particular method. Mine is hybrid. Yep, I've been out 4 times, okay? Stinks, absolutely stinks. But that is the decision I made. And I made it based on what I knew was going to happen in the schools. I think it's a contract in many ways that we made with these parents who have made a choice to either do hybrid or do remote. If we're going to change anything about these rules of how we're going to operate, I think parental input is absolutely, we should be open to that before we make a change like this. So that's parents. The second thing is, of course, the teaching staff and the people that we rely on to come in every day and be with these students. We also entered into an agreement with them. And yes, there are some, I know that there are, some who believe that it should change. But I don't know how many there are. And I don't know how everybody else has reacted. So again, input from there, I think, is very important as well.
Can I follow up your statement
Sure,
with a question?
go right ahead.
So if we change the rules and a parent says we're not comfortable, that they're allowed to go full remote, right? They can switch to full remote?
If they weren't comfortable with this?
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't denied a parent going full remote.
Yeah, I think.
We haven't allowed people to come back in if we don't have space.
Again,
This is not
I don't,
fair.
special meeting, whatever, I mean, I don't necessarily, I'm not saying that I don't support it or support it, right? If the data says what the data says, we should evaluate it. But I mean, there is something to be said about a public official answering questions for parents and staff members and anybody else that wants to ask questions. I get it, people are flat out, but they're paid for by taxpayers, and sometimes you have to come on TV and answer questions.
I don't think it's very fair to a parent who has made a decision to, within these rules, to allow for hybrid, to have their child go in, and then suddenly say to them, okay, we're changing the rules, but you still can do remote. Okay, we're helping a certain number of students that we're bringing in because maybe they're not engaging as well, whatever's going on. But it's not fair, maybe this parent's student has the same issue, but now is gonna go remote. So I think we have to be very careful here on what we're doing. We've set an agreement. This is what we did. We made those choices. We set those policies. And when we did, people made choices. People need to have input into the choices again if we're going to change the way that we're going to operate this. And look, I will be the first person to say to you, and that's why I voted for hybrid, to me, it is the most important thing to have that face-to-face contact with that teacher in that classroom. So it's not because I don't want kids back in. I want kids back in. But I also think that we have a responsibility to hold up to what we said we were going to do. And I don't want to make a change. I don't agree that we should make a big change in it. And this is a change. I cannot see it operating efficiently at the high school. I cannot see.
I can speak to that because
I know you're in a high school, but wait a minute.
lived that model,
And not only in high school, now I've had input from elementary level parents and teachers and staff who are saying that there is not one single day where they do not help somebody out of a car, assist somebody out of whatever. There are many examples that I end up receiving of how they do have close contact with a student, and they may not be in that classroom and that teacher that's being asked about who's a close contact and who's not a close contact. And I also think it puts a great onus on a teacher. And so Donna's already made that point. I won't go into it further, but that's it.
I'm curious, since we mentioned this 2 weeks ago, what has feedback been? Have you heard from parents and teachers? I mean, we've heard from one parent. I have, that we all have heard from. So I'm just wondering, have you heard, like, from the teachers, or have you heard from parents?
Personally, I haven't heard from teachers. I had a parent, might have been the same parent that emailed you, wanting to go back to school more. I had a parent email that didn't like the concept of the pool testing, but that was really kind of like a separate issue. No, I haven't heard anything. Nothing substantive.
So I think it's important. People are trusting us that we are continuing, unless, not everybody is going to just be listening to our meetings every single time, because tonight's been a long one and it's going to continue to be long. But they're trusting us on those things. If this is major, this to me is a major change.
Yeah. I'll just say one last thing and just kind of leave it. I just think we have all along this way tried to make improvements to the program.
Yeah.
If what we are implementing right now was just what we said we were going to do in September, and we didn't change or tweak anything, then we'd be no better for it. But we've figured out what's worked well with remote, what's worked well with hybrid. Does the day look a little different? Is the schedule different? Adaptations. We've done those kind of adaptations to try to make the program better. We know that the program is not working for some of our students, and I just feel badly for not trying to address some of those needs. I guess that's, and I know we all want to try to help everyone, but it's like to see an issue and not try to come up with some kind of remedy for it is what I'm just struggling with.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? And I just want to make sure, I really just want to make sure I understand it. So your thought is, instead of having the, if they're in cohort A, they come in on the cohort B days, but they're not going to go necessarily to a classroom. They're going to go to another.
Well, they can't
social-
go into their regular classroom
Yeah.
because there's not enough seats, let's
Okay.
say. So the school would set up an alternate, study space.
Okay.
So they would go there, but
And that would still follow social distancing.
Oh, yeah, that
and
would
all
follow,
stuff.
or even more, but the problem would be, you'd be putting multiple kids from different classrooms in that space, so that technically, you could potentially be knocking out the whole, my example was the 5th grade, because, someone happened to be in that space, and then they were flagged as a close contact, so it kicks back to the main classroom where the case came from.
From cohort A.
Right, whether the kid was within 6 feet or not. That was the concern. And that was just one example of, what we were talking about.
So I don't want to leave people with the impression that we don't care about kids that are struggling, because that is not fair, okay? But these are big decisions. And just as I am very concerned about kids who may be struggling, and I deal with that every day, okay, as a teacher, I'm also concerned about somebody inadvertently getting sick and having lifelong health complications or dying as a result of the fact that, we didn't exercise caution. And as I kind of think a little bit down the road, will we have to reverse things? If, for example, we go for a longer school day and now kids are in the classroom with their masks off for a lunch period, does that mean now we're going to go back to the original guidelines that we're operating under right now? Because that's 15, 20, 25 minutes of masks off while they're eating, right? The other is we've had parents contact us about, wanting to be, at their kids' athletic events. If we're going to go by the CDC guidelines, does that change that for, these parents? Would they be able to attend their athletic events? There's a lot of things we've put on hold as a result of the guidelines that we're currently following. How does this change all of those things?
The sports guidelines are different. A lot of that has to do with outside capacity. A lot of it has to do with agreements that were reached between districts and MOUs about not really having outsiders into school facilities. So that's a whole different thing. But no, if we made the move from the 3/4 day to the full day, obviously just instituting a Wednesday wouldn't be a big deal because we're already in school. It would just be a different grouping. You just have to alter the cleaning cycle. But if you went from the 3/4 day to the full day, yeah, that's one of the operational issues we have to look at is, what would lunch look like? How would the kids be separated? Would they stay in their room? Would they eat in the cafeteria? This is all the stuff that we're working at now. But I wouldn't say that we never think about doing that just because it's going to be some type of a change. I just think that over the course of this, between now and June, I want to start to try to bring people back more in person if we're able to, and safely do it. I just think that, the data supports that we have been able to safely do it. None of us want to do anything that's unsafe. And even if you tried something and it didn't work, I think we'd all have to come back to the table and say, hey, listen, it didn't work, now we need to change. You wouldn't just keep doing it because you said you were going to make that change.
Yeah, I just don't want it to be such a great consequence. Do you know what I'm saying? That, something seriously happens with a group of kids or staff, and then we say, well, that didn't work, and now we have to go back.
But again, I'm going to say, we're doing something nobody else is doing, and everybody else that's doing the 6 foot is having the same results we are. We're not doing something that's unsafe. It's proven unsafe. And that Chelmsford all of a sudden is going to become the one place where it's unsafe to change to what the CDC recommends. I don't think that's going to happen.
And as I said,
What I'd like to see us move forward. See, we can't just stay at one spot and spin our wheels. We need to get these kids that aren't doing well back, into school more. They need help, and we can't move forward if we're going to spin our wheels for 4 weeks on what we call a close contact. I'd like to see us move forward and again, it's been proven safe by schools all around, including the school I work at. There's ways of tracing it. There have been cases that I've known of school, and they come in and they talk to the teacher and they find out who sits where and they do the close contacts. And like Chelmsford, there's been no in-school transmission. None of those kids in that 6-foot circle have ever been close contacts with, tested positive from being in those classrooms with them. So we're not doing something unsafe, in my estimation. And again, if we want to move forward, if we want to help these kids and get ready for next year, then we have to take some action at some point.
Well, what about the data that suggests that, based on random testing, the second highest group of positives was 11 to 18-year-olds? I mean, that's,
But again, are they in school wearing masks, following the guidelines? That's where our kids are in school, wearing masks, washing their hands, 6-foot distance. Who knows what those 11 to 18-year-olds are doing? Are they having a party outside? Maybe that's why the numbers are high.
But they're going to bring it into school if they're coming to school. That's my concern.
Okay, and then those people within that 6-foot circle will be identified as close contacts, tested, and hopefully will be negative, like they have been up to this point. Again, I just feel like we're spinning our wheels, and I want to see us move forward to help our students.
Right. So what you're saying is, in order to be able to help our students, we might put others at risk, and that's just the way it's going to be.
We're putting them as much risk as we have from September. Again, even if we had the 6-foot contact rule in September, it wouldn't change where we are as far as transmission within the school.
Right, even if we had the original rule.
Right.
If we had done it the original, I think what he's saying is,
I understand
it
what
still
he's
would have
saying.
been X amount of kids in that
Right.
class, and the tests would have still come
Nobody has
out.
tested as a transmission in school.
Everybody that
with
leaves and goes out on quarantine gets tested, correct?
What's that?
Everybody that leaves and goes out, okay, gets tested.
No.
No, okay?
No.
So you can't say then, all right, that one of those kids, all right, no, seriously,
You don't know.
you don't know.
But we do know the ones that are tested are coming back negative.
Okay.
And we're gonna have testing. When's the pool testing?
And
Do
we have
even
the pool
any
testing, and
idea?
That's when
Again,
we're working on the.
I guess my concern is we're
Finance.
just not getting anywhere, and I want to do something
See,
to.
and I
help.
disagree. We're in school still,
Yes.
okay? It's the beginning of February. We must be doing
And
something.
we have
right.
kids that are not doing as well as they could be because they're not in school enough. And you see that in the last
So
report.
increase the amount of time that they're in school.
We can't without,
I can't.
we can't, that's the point.
You can add a Wednesday?
That's the cleaning day.
Well, no, we're talking about possibly adding Wednesdays and just doing like
Right.
a rotation.
Yeah.
But this group that we'll talk about later, like, they're struggling when they're remote.
I understand that. As I said, I live it every single day, okay? But my concern are the ones that Maria concerned. And to be perfectly honest with you, all I really asked for was, at the beginning of this, was a meeting with the Board of Health to hear from them directly, okay, about, what is it that we're entering into, and to be able to answer our questions about, some of the concerns that we have, and to be able to reassure parents, okay, that we're not putting their kids at risk. And I even offered a special meeting, Zoom, okay, a week from tonight, in order to be able to have that happen.
Is the Board of Health available a week from tonight? I don't know. Like I said, that's why I reached out today. That's why I called to find out. That's why I talked to Sue, and I said, what do you think, what is your thoughts on this? And she said, we're comfortable with a 6-foot distance. We're comfortable with what the CDC said. We're not comfortable with DESI says, which is 3 feet. We started out conservative. Things have worked out great. We're comfortable with the 6-foot. I mean, I don't know what is going to be said differently if we have her come into the meeting and say this to us.
She's going to say it.
Yes.
She's a
Okay.
public health official.
But she just did say it.
She didn't say it to me.
She said
Well,
it
I'm
to
just
you.
telling, so you don't believe what I'm telling you?
Well,
I
this is
believe
not
it.
true.
Well,
Okay,
then what
wait
does
a
it
minute.
matter whether she's sitting in front of us or not?
Because
I'm
she's a
telling
public official, and she's answerable to the public, which includes the parents and children and the grandparents and teachers of this community. She's a public official. She is there to answer questions from the public.
And I asked as a member of the public the question, and she gave me the answer, and I just related the answer to you, but now you want to wait another week?
No, you
and have her
should-
sit in front of us so she can say the same thing?
No,
I don't
she
get
doesn't
it.
need to answer my question. Maybe there's a parent that has a question. Maybe there are 50 parents. Maybe there are no parents that have questions. Maybe no parents show up and they don't really care. But we don't know, and I'm just going to reiterate the fact she's a public official. She's the public health official for our town, and she has an obligation to speak to parents if they have concerns. Sorry, there's nothing false about what I just said. I see your point on the CDC thing. I understand where you're trying to go. And I'm kind of there, and I think I understand what you're trying to say. I also don't think it's unreasonable for the public health official for this community to come out and maybe get on a Zoom and maybe get asked one question or maybe get asked no questions, but at least answer the questions in public So at least parents and everybody else knows that we're doing our due diligence.
Yeah, I agree. I'm almost there. I have to be honest with you.
I'm almost there too.
But I just want to make sure that parents are completely clear, okay, on what we're doing, why we're doing it, what the implications are, and what the Board of Health has seen to date.
I agree.
I would just like to add, and I'll stop after that. Sue has been fantastic working with us.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be spun like she's not willing, or
No, not at
I
all.
think in the thing, it's just, I'm sure it was a timing type issue. Whenever we've asked anything of her or the Board of Health, they've always come
They've done
forward.
great work.
So,
They've
yeah, so
phenomenal.
this is not like an adversarial
Not
type
at
thing.
all.
I think it was more just like timing, and I'm just saying, because I don't want it to be taken the wrong way. I don't think any of us are angry with,
No.
with Sue or the Board of Health. They've been excellent.
No, they've done a
You know what we
great
are?
job in the town.
I'll tell you what we are. I think we're scared. I think we're concerned.
Yes.
We want to make the right decision. There's a lot of factors to weigh. And to be honest with you, I mean, I'm not a medical expert. And I've seen things change since September, both better
Yes.
and for the worse. And now we're talking about other things, we're talking about double masking now and variants and things like this. Maybe it won't be an issue. Maybe it will be. But, I just feel like at this point, I need the reassurance of the medical experts. And so I feel like we owe that to the families, okay, that we're moving in the right direction with this.
Okay, so is the consensus of the board, you would like to reach out to Sue and see if she can meet us sometime within the next week?
Yeah, I am,
Obviously,
I will make it
Donna,
a
I believe-
priority.
I
Yeah,
would guess that you
absolutely,
would say
100%.
yes.
I'll do it over the weekend if you want.
Jeff, are you,
I think.
That would be
Yeah, I think
very
that's
good.
fair.
I'll reach out, I'll see what she's available,
If she can't come in physically, is it possible that we send
We can do a remote.
questions to have her, and then
We
we
can
prepare
all
them?
do a Zoom meeting with all of us, you know what I'm
Yes.
saying? So that,
Sure.
we don't even have to come in. We could just do a Zoom meeting.
do a
Well,
Zoom.
again, I'm gonna have to see what her schedule's like. She
Yeah.
is doing vaccinations every single day,
Yeah,
probably
we
9 hours a
understand.
day,
I know.
10 hours a day, and has her own meetings, so.
And by the way, shame on the government, the state and the federal government for not prioritizing teacher vaccinations. Shame, absolute shame. You want to open schools, you vaccinate the staff. Sorry, that has nothing to do with Chelmsford. I'm just saying it out loud.
And I think the other thing is that you've offered some options, possibilities that you're discussing about how to bring more students back in and so on. And I haven't said a thing to any of the possibilities, but I would like to have a discussion about those possibilities because, for example, one of the things you mentioned is maybe having a whole group in a room of, these are your remote days, but you coming in on your remote days. Well, there are reasons why parents made a decision to keep the kids remote. If we don't get rid of those reasons, all of them, they may not want to send the child in. There are many reasons why.
These aren't no, I was talking about like the hybrid kids. That let's say you're in cohort A and you're only coming in Monday, Tuesday.
So you're not opening it up to other students who may be remote right now and are actually having a lot of the problems possibly that.
Oh, no, you could, if they were interested. I'm just saying,
Okay.
we're not forcing it.
Okay. So if we're going to do that type of thing, which now introduces additional students who haven't been part of either A or B or whatever, haven't been in the schools, I think all these types of things are going to be very important to make parents aware in the district that these things are happening and possibilities, and start, participating in it to see how it's going to impact them and whether they'd even take advantage of it, because, some people may decide they don't want it.
But it would be A students with A students and B students with B students. It wouldn't be A and B
Yeah, you wouldn't mix.
mixed together.
There won't
B
be any
students would go
mix,
to
that's
class.
great, but if
A
kids-
students would be in a completely different part of the building.
Yeah, but if kids come in from remote into hybrid, if we increase the number, if we have the possibility of increasing the number, which is what you're talking about?
No, we don't have the ability to do that.
Okay,
It's and I don't think you would see many fully remote kids taking advantage of this, because the group that we're struggling with is the hybrid kids that are who want to be in person, but we can only accommodate them 2 days a week as opposed to 5. That's the group that was primarily struggling with right now. The people who have picked the full 5-day-a-week remote program, I don't think are going to want to come into the school to just physically be remote the whole time. Because they have
Okay.
no teacher interaction.
Okay, but so right now, I remember this, between last week and this week,
Yeah.
I have had my kids come home and say to me, I was the only kid in the class today. Okay, and that class usually has, I don't know, 5, 6, or 7 students. I was the only one here. So even the kids who do have the ability to be hybrid, to be present on particular days, are not coming in person. I think we need to go beyond, adding in time and so on, and finding out why some people are going just totally either remote. They may be on the screen. I didn't ask that question. I should ask that question. Were they actually on the screen instead? What were the reasons?
Right.
Many of these students work part-time outside of the home. They play sports, so they decide they don't want to come in because they don't want to be going out and whatever, in quarantine. So all of these different reasons, what are the reasons? Why is this happening? And how do we make sure that you're here physically in person? I think we need to go a little deeper into what's going on there. And I'm only talking about one level, and I don't know what's happening at the middle level.
It's different at the high school than it is elementary and middle.
Yeah, I don't know what's
High school's kind of a
happening.
unique animal with this one. We're not experiencing at the middle school or the elementary level what's been happening at the high school.
Then why don't we just
So
make
maybe
those
go by
changes at
levels.
the elementary and middle school?
Yeah.
What do you mean? No, I'm talking about the hybrid kids
Yeah.
are in at the
No,
elementary and
I'm
middle
sorry,
school
I was
level.
talking about something else. I think I was on a different wavelength there.
No, there are times, for I'm sure, a number of different reasons, like the high school kids who are hybrid and supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Are just choosing to join the class remotely instead of coming in.
Not even on the same wavelength.
Yeah, totally
Sorry.
different.
Yeah.
No, that's
They're
okay.
not
Different thing. So I do want to say this. If we talk to Sue and we present our concerns and we have the opportunity for parents to ask questions, and we get to the end of this, I'm like I said, I'm ready to move forward. I recognize that we have that struggling group of kids, and I don't want to prolong this. I want to have it happen sooner than later, but they're the experts.
Right, so one of us will reach out and see.
Sure.
All right, anything else on COVID updates?
Just a quick, so when were you looking to try to implement, like, what's the, what's your timeline look like? First of all, do we have to vote on this?
I think at this point, to be honest with you, I'm not looking to do something like super controversial here. If it's not something you support, I don't want to just implement it on my own. So if you guys, approve that modification, it'd take me some time to roll it out, but we'd hopefully roll it out sometime in March.
Yeah, I think we generally all support it, right? If other school districts are having good results and we happen to be more strict, and we know that there's not going to be a negative impact, I think most of us support it. I just, so you can probably start planning for it. It's just a matter of, I think we have an obligation as elected officials to bring public health official into the discussion, and not through third-party telephone discussions, like directly. Say that we agree with this and we're on the record.
I think as part of that too, Jay, before, as we're thinking about rolling out, I think like to hear more of the specifics around how we're going to actually track, the close contact. As I said, when you have teachers who are in close contact, how are they monitoring this? Who's in close contact over a 24-hour period? Those kinds of things. I think that we definitely need some protocols in place so that we can make sure that we're monitoring this properly, and that if any changes happen down the road, that, we have that trigger point that says, okay, we need to go back to what we were doing before.
Anything else?
All right. Items 7 and 8, Linda had put a couple reports together Donna had asked for about some student grade data and then also just student attendance data. So do you mind sharing those with us?
Yeah. So, we're going to start off with the student grade data comparison. We are entering term 3, which is semester 2 for the high school, which is the halfway mark. What I believe the committee was looking for was what was the comparison of grades And this is obviously going to be for 5 through 12, because at the elementary level, they have standard space. There's no grading system per se to be able to tease out this much information. But what's the difference between last year and this year? So we were able to pull all the term 1 data because we are just finishing term 2 and we're waiting for all the final postings. So that's why in both of these reports that you'll be seeing is going to be comparing term 1 only. Once we get the term 2 data, we can take a look at that as we go along. At the middle and high school level, this is nothing new to be looking at students that fall below a 70. This is something they do each term just because this is how is one way that we can access kids, find out who's struggling, why they're struggling. So this is not just a report that's done just for this committee right now, but it's just to tell you the difference between the 2 years. As predicted, we are seeing an uptick of some students that are not succeeding in school. They're falling below the 70 mark. You'll see there's some significant differences at the high school, maybe not as much between the 2 middle schools, one a little bit higher than the other. And what is important to know, though, is the total number of grades that you see, whether it's for all grades together or broken down between the grade levels. That doesn't mean that's the amount of students. That's why I gave you underneath, I told you how many more grades you'll be seeing below a 70. But then if you look at that last line where it says total number of students, 2021, that's just for this school year, that's the number of students that make up the total grades. So if you're looking at the high school year where you see the largest amount, which is 495 grades that are below a 70, it's 213 students that make up the 495 grades.
And how
I
many
want people
students,
say it
how many
again?
students in a class in general?
How many students are in a
The
class?
class year, like senior year, we have 300 and 400.
What are we, it's like 350 or something
Yeah.
for a
350?
class,
Okay.
average?
So,
So the high school's about a little under 1,600, so
Yeah, about
So under
350,
400.
yeah.
so 62 out of 350, say for 12, grade 12.
Correct, so like if you
Actual
would take the grade
physical students,
12,
yeah.
there's 130, so for the 20 and 21 school year, this current school year, there was 135 total grades that were below a 70, right, for students. Of that, for grade 12, it's 62 students that are making up
Out
that
of
135 grades.
Linda,
Yes.
do we know at the high school if this has any effect from the change in the leveling?
No, we wouldn't be able to
Okay,
tease
okay.
that out. I don't know, I wouldn't even know how to attempt
Okay,
to do
just-
that. This is just more, what we're trying to do is find out the reasonings behind it, right?
Right.
Is it because students are not attending, right? So this is where the work gets done at that level. So you'll be looking at, this is actually 2 middle schools too, guidance counselors are looking at specific students. Are they not logging on to their meets? Is it these students that need to be in school more than just the 2 days because they're only engaging on the 2 physical days that they walk through the door? Does the parent need additional support? Is there an access issue, right? Is there, we realize they don't have any Wi-Fi. No, they didn't reach out to get some support with it. So all of that work is the work that's being done at the school level to try and help support these students that we're starting to see struggle, which makes about sense, given, the current circumstances. So there's no way to kind of tease that out, but the same thing is happening too at the 2 middle schools as well, and they've already had there's been no changes in leveling for them at this point. So the typical outreach is happening. Some of the other additional things is, obviously, as we were just discussing, that the 2 middle schools would like to put together some type of a support system for those students that could come in more than just the 2 days a week. The high school is offering a credit recovery process over vacation week where students can take a certain amount of coursework on Edgenuity. It's going to be put together by the coordinators, monitored to see if those students that are trying to re-engage back in school can capture some of the credit recovery so that we're not at the end of the school year trying to catch students up. So there's many different projects that are going on. Even at the elementary level, they're starting to see students that may not be engaging as much. And they're still working with families to make sure that kids are getting, what they need at those levels. Advisories, mentoring, pen pals, anything, right? How do we re-engage our students back in school? So this is the effects of what we're seeing given our current learning models.
Do we know if this is majority of hybrid students, remote students, how that kind of breaks down?
We didn't break it down by hybrid and remote, and so we just
Is
have it
it
as the
possible
total.
to get that information?
I'd have to ask, it's gonna be, the high school numbers are the hardest ones to get just because there's so many kids and so many factors that go into it. But I can ask we can see if there's anything in X2 that we can query it out.
I'd be curious to see if the remote versus hybrid, if there's like a noticeable delta between the two.
Yeah.
It would be important.
The only other thing that's going to be hard to tease out is the kids who picked hybrid, but who haven't been really going, who are just, attending. That'd be a hard number to break out. Obviously, the kids that are fully remote wouldn't be hard.
I think we're going to have a lot of follow-up over the next, after school's done, we're going to have a lot of time to review this year and see what happened and what worked and what didn't.
Yeah, the other thing is where this is term one, we allowed people to make that switch over change. So you may not see the effects of if somebody was remote and they came in hybrid or vice versa, did that make an effect at all?
And that would also probably be at the high school, the athletes who decided to go remote so
Yeah.
that they wouldn't miss any of
Right,
their
so
time.
that's why I gave you the term grades the times of the terms, just to have an idea of like how much time we're talking about when we pulled this data.
Right, and I would say, just from my experience, the students that have been remote from the beginning, and that's what they're doing okay. It's the hybrid kids or the kids that were hybrid and said, I'm not gonna come, those are the kids that struggle for whatever reason. But the kids that from day one have been remote, in my case at least, those are the kids that, they have the routine, and they're doing okay. But it is the kids that are like drifting back, I don't wanna come to school anymore, I'm just gonna stay remote, and then they don't log in, and.
I'm having the opposite problem.
All right.
Actually, yeah. To tell
Yeah,
you
that's
the
true.
truth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
'cause you were
I mean,
fully-
this is different.
fully in.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it just depends on, there's so many factors that go into this. But I am kind of curious, because we had the math coordinator here, and he said that the kids were actually doing pretty well in math.
So if you look at their benchmarking, right,
Right.
so any type of assessments we do, they're able to do this stuff, so what's the
That's
the
what I'm kind of getting
correlation?
at. So is it not a preferred learning style? Is it, because obviously they're still doing okay on the assessments.
Right.
So,
The diagnostics.
yes, the diagnostics, excuse me, thank you. They're doing okay on the diagnostics, but they're getting below a 70, so what's happening?
Right, so that's when we look at grading practices, what are they actually being graded on?
Okay.
Well, and are they just disengaging?
Right, so there's a difference, though, not that,
From my experience, I have a middle school and an elementary school. It's hard to keep them focused, right? And you give them their own learning space, and sometimes you catch them, right? And they're not really doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, yeah, I get why kids get 70s, right?
Yeah.
I hope that
Yeah.
the teachers and I hope that the administration is allowing kids to make up work.
But grading because they're not doing the work versus
Grading
grading
because
because.
they're not coming online.
Right, because they're not getting the material because they're learning online is different.
Right.
Right.
I think that a lot of kids, especially at the middle school and the high school level, have lost hope in many ways. And if there is something that we can do just generally to try to bring more in focus how important it is to join in those meets and to come to school and so on. Anything we can do to inspire them to do that would be truly important to do it. It's simple. It's as simple as this. You know what? I was going to get my driver's license. Now I have to wait an entire 2 months before they can book me for the test. It's that kind of stuff that adds to the lack of motivation or the lack of seeing what the next step is that's coming down the line and how studying and doing well is going to impact them going forward. I'm sure the guidance people and the psychologists can say this a lot better than I can, but it's at that point. We've done so much during this COVID stuff that it's at a point where sometimes you just don't see what's coming in the future here. And especially at this age level, I think that's really important to see if we can focus a bit on that. I understand about being in person, and I understand the need to be in person, but it's also about that.
Well, and to
Yeah,
Maria's
I
point.
think
Jeff had
Go ahead,
something.
Jeff.
Yeah.
I just think with this information, it gives the guidance, it gives the administration a point to find out specifically why certain students aren't doing well, and that this is a good starting point so that when you gear things for a student, whatever the reason happens to be, whether they're sleeping in, that's, why are they sleeping in? Why? And I think that now we can find out specific things versus just in general terms.
Donna?
Right, and for future practice, right?
Right.
For future practice. And to Maria's point, you know, I mean, I think that sometimes what really engages the seniors and gets them geared up and, you know, keeps them from suffering too much academically are the things to look forward to, like prom, graduation, and all the senior activities. And we don't know if that's going to happen.
Right.
And so, you know, that's really, really hard on these kids.
Yep.
You know, and, you know, I get it. You know, I've got a senior in college. You know, she doesn't know if she's going to have a graduation ceremony. It's hard.
Even
She talks about, you know, it's a real grind right now.
Yep.
You know, I just filled out my application to graduate, and I don't even know what's.
She's a very good student, yeah.
She's a good, and
It's
it's
a grind for her,
rough.
And it's the same thing even looking for colleges. They can't even go see a college.
No.
So
Right.
it's
Yes,
just,
none
there's
of that's
so
there
much
for them.
there. Middle school, probably even worse.
Okay, any other questions on the grade reports?
No, thank you for putting that together. That's good information.
Thank you.
Okay,
Right.
attendance
Continuing
report.
on.
Yeah, moving on.
Moving on with Linda. So, and again, this is another thing that they're looking at for correlation. So this was the report pulled for attendance. And what's interesting is I hypothesized higher attendance across the board, and that was not necessarily reality when you start to look at the different schools between the two school years. So high school, again, significant uptick. That it could be a direct correlation with the grades that we're seeing, and that's the stuff that's where they're digging in a little bit further to find out what's going on with the students, how they're being graded, what's actually making up that grade, right? Same with the middle school. So you'll see that Parker and McCarthy have definitely a discrepancy. McCarthy seems to be down in attendance, where Parker seems to be up, which is unusual. Typically, the two middle schools go together. And even when you get as far down as South Row, I had actually called Molly. I said, I think you may have come up with, you know, an attendance cure, what's going on there, to find out some of the pieces that are going on. But I think what's important to understand about attendance in general is that when we first started this whole venture with how to do the attendance, DESE changed the rules, not in a bad way, but because what was happening was there was the coding process, because everything goes through our student information systems. That's the SIS I talk about. There's only so many codes that DESE has. You can't make up fake codes for attendance. So given this virtual, like remote and in-person piece, everybody started to do their attendance with remote and in-person using those codes. And all of a sudden, all these errors were coming back because the information system couldn't read it. So then that's when DESE came up with the virtual present, virtual absent, in-person present, and in-person absent. So the teachers have 4 different codes now to do. So you're seeing term 1 coding going on in attendance with 2 different sets of codes that happen. So I don't know if everybody necessarily was doing their attendance the same way, or if we're starting to see some discrepancies. What we have seen, and this was like the specific conversation even at South Row, is that South Row tends to have many families that travel a little bit more, perhaps to their home countries, also to, vacations and stuff. And I think with COVID happening, there hasn't been as many ways that people can get out and actually leave, so kids are coming to school. So that was kind of one of the hypotheses around why we're seeing such a difference in attendance for South Row specifically.
So these numbers, absences?
Yeah.
Like how many students have been absent?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can you define absent too, please? Like, so what I mean by that is,
Either in school or not in school. It's not tardy. It has no tardies
okay,
involved.
and it's like flat out absent.
You
Not
are you are either
quarantined,
there or not there.
quarantined, not.
Not
okay,
quarantined.
just-
You are physically not, like virtually or physically not present
Okay.
in your class.
Right. And I do want to echo how really problematic taking attendance was through the fall.
Yep, it was new
It was
for
probably
everybody.
the most stressful part of my day was trying to get my attendance right.
Right, and with the extensions that went on to Google, that helped, people started to get their routines down, especially with the 4 different types of attendance. Because before, teachers only marked students absent. They never told you they were in school, it was assumed they were in school, so it was just absences. You go through you'd pull up your, in X2, your roster, and you just go right down the board, absent only. Now it's virtually absent, virtually present, in-person absent, in-person present. So they're now putting in something for every single child instead of just the 3 kids that may have been absent that day.
So these numbers probably aren't that reliable.
They are and they're not, right? And I think with the change in DESE having the two, like, that because it couldn't read the in-person piece opposed to remote, and they had to change their function, that's why you're seeing some of these changes. The other reason you see at the elementary schools, kindergarten teased out compared to grades 1 through 4, is they have, they do half year, so they only have 2 marking periods in kindergarten, where elementary 1 through 4 has 3 marking periods, and then middle school and high school have 4 marking periods. The other difference is at high school, remember, they're taking attendance for every single class, right? Because kids sometimes may not show up to a class. Surprise, surprise. Elementary and middle school, they take attendance at the beginning of the day. They're not necessarily going class by class by class.
So that was a question I had about the high school. So this is daily attendance.
This is, yeah, this is
So you
their-
could have somebody who's, doesn't show up to the class, the person taking daily attendance, right?
But it's if they didn't show, because that gets rectified at the end of the day.
Okay.
So this is, they flat out, we're not in school.
Okay, because I have some that, you know,
Otherwise, this
pick and
would be-
choose what remote class they want to be in, but they're
This would
marked.
be over like 10,000, if
Okay.
that were the case.
Oh, all right, so good to know.
So this is actually really important as well to track for, figuring out if a person is a close contact or not. So they're doing it in person and they're doing it if it's remote. So that gives me a
Yes.
little bit
Yeah,
level
there's 4 different
of
at the bottom. I
comfort.
gave you the 4 different
Yeah, and
pieces.
just so I make sure I understood this, in the high school, let's say that a student decides that they're going to attend the morning sessions, but when they go home in the afternoon, they don't log in. What happens with that?
There would be an unexcused dismissal, and that would go to the dean.
It's an absence?
No, they're absent from the class, that day, but they're not necessarily absent from school that day. That would just be an unexcused dismissal on behalf of the child.
Because that does happen.
Yeah, that's what Donna was saying.
Yeah, so, and a student who, signs in for 3rd period
Yeah,
and
or you
5th
come in
period.
late, you're going
Right.
you make it to your second.
You said that gets rectified at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all
But
right.
that happened when
Oh.
it wasn't,
Oh,
remote,
absolutely.
when it wasn't hybrid.
It's just easier to chase them down and drag
Yeah.
them to the house
Yeah.
office, though.
Yeah, right, you could find them.
Right, you can find
Saw
them.
them when the camera's
Right.
walking out.
And you could be close enough to grab them.
Right.
Oh, yeah, just go to your house office.
Yeah.
Now you can't do that.
Right.
All right. Any other questions on this?
Yeah, so I think we'll have a better handling, like term 2 will give us a better idea, because that is the same absenteeism process all the way straight through, and to find out how the schools are making sure that they're doing their absences, because there could be some discrepancies, and it is super time consuming when you now have to mark everybody either present or absent, opposed to just absent. Like, that should only be a 3 to 5 minute task, it could be a 10-minute task now.
Now, when do you think we get the data from second?
So we're closing up second term
Right.
from, most levels for probably in the next like 3 weeks or so.
Okay. So maybe like a March meeting?
Yeah, take a look, see
For
if there's
kids who are
any.
chronically absent in the houses, our deans are reaching out, I assume, to the
Yep.
families and trying to
Families,
figure out what
yep.
the problem is, okay.
Oh, yeah, that's what we're saying, is like, now's the time to capture anything that we can do to help support the kids, because once you get into 4th term, you've lost the year. They're in danger to fail.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, anything else on absences?
Thank you again.
All right, yeah, thank you for both reports.
And
And
continuing.
then it's Linda again.
And continuing with the COVID theme, as things change, this is actually not a surprise to me. This was something I had a concern about when we were entering this whole process and finding out that people were removing students from school. But you'll notice that obviously we have mandatory entrance ages for our students to come to school. Kindergarten is obviously not mandated, but if students are going to come to school with kindergarten, they have to be age 5 before August 31st of the start of the school year. And school is mandatory for students once they turn 6 for their upcoming school year, and again, they have to be 6 before August 31st of that school year. What we're starting to see now that registration is happening, and I've had some outreach to parents, is many people that did not send their students to kindergarten would like to see a repeat of kindergarten. The current policy doesn't support that. We do have the waiver process for students that have attended a kindergarten program privately and who would like to go into 1st grade. We have a waiver process that allows them to do so if their birth date falls between September 1st and September 30th. we do not have it in the reverse, right? So kids that did not go to kindergarten, they would then be registered for first grade because they will be 6 before August 31st, up until August 31st. So I did a little bit of legwork, taking a look at, what would be the difference if we would allow students to come in to repeat kindergarten again, what would be the effects? One of the largest things is obviously age differences between the grade level. Your youngest student in a grade would be 5, and your oldest would be 5 years, 11 months. If we were to allow a waiver process for people to come into kindergarten who didn't attend kindergarten last year, didn't go to a private program, didn't attend somewhere else, to then come in even though they should be going to first grade, there's a mirror policy available that, this is what I'm trying to bring to you for a recommendation, that would allow them to go for a waiver process to go to kindergarten again if their birth dates fall between August 1st and August 31st. That would make a 13-month difference between your youngest and your oldest student in that grade level. So one of the things you have to keep in mind is I know people are very focused on kindergarten, first grade only, but then we have to think programmatically throughout the school year, what content they receive, what programs they receive. And then when we think about high school, our high schoolers are usually 17, turning 18, because they become adults when they are 18 years old. If we push these students further, we will be having students that will be 19 years old in the high school, with your youngest student at the high school being 13. That's a 6-year span. That's a significant span when we get to that. So it does affect certain programming and certain access to it. So in talking, I did contact Andy while we were going back and forth with the policy to try and come up with language around it that would give some discretion and give some flexibility. It does mirror your waiver process for first grade. It does provide some flexibility for some families to allow them if they've missed that cutoff. Because I can understand, like, if your birth date was the day before or the day after, it's a cutoff date. It's a firm date. We usually don't go, above or below it. This would allow for some of that flexibility for this 1 year if parents had decided to take their kids out of kindergarten for the school year.
Questions?
So we'll be all set on the high school end because there are rules in place around age span, correct?
There is. I mean, the other thing you have to take into account, and again, I don't know any of these students, but you have the 48-month rule for special education programming.
Right, that's what I meant, yeah.
And that's where it would you'd probably see it happening more so is at the high school level, because 13 to 19 is a larger span than 13 to 18. Obviously,
Right, and your programming doesn't necessarily allow for.
Correct.
Right.
Again, I'm not saying these are students of special ed or not, but you don't know.
Correct.
I don't know. So that's what I'm saying, when people get very hyper-focused on where we currently are,
Yep.
it does affect some of the programming and even some of the content that students are accessible to, and age appropriateness of peers.
Right.
So you'd have to add an exception to that age limit for waived students, for people that were waived in.
We can't change the 48-month rule. That's a special ed rule through DESE, but we don't. We're just talking about having older students in the school. They're 18. You don't talk to the parents anymore. You talk to the students once they're 18.
Yeah.
Any decisions that are made, anything like that, the parents actually are no longer part of that process. It would be the student that would be part of that process.
Okay.
So it's a full year of a student being 18, turning 19 in a school year that technically you wouldn't contact parents.
Yeah, they can sign to. They can do the age of majority form.
Correct.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of situations where you may have transfer coming in who, is going to be 19 in senior year.
Yeah, if somebody comes from another district and they have different rules around it, your policy actually addresses that if a student were in 10th grade, but age-wise it wouldn't be the appropriate part for us, we would have to put them in 11th grade for next year because they're coming with a transcript from somewhere else. We do have some circumstances of it, but it's just not necessarily widely popular. The other thing is, it's not even just that 19-year-old thing. I wouldn't want to just get hung up on that. You have a 13-month difference. If you go with this August waiver, you'll have a 13-month difference between your possible oldest child and youngest child in the class. Obviously, if you go any further, it turns into 14 months, 15 months. A year and a half difference, you're really starting to see a significance in students. And I also thinking academically for those students, if they don't need an extra boost, when they are in those grade levels, they could potentially be a little bored in school as well.
So this policy, you think, addresses those concerns? It allows for a waiver?
It allows for a waiver to some flexibility
Right.
where, especially where it's that August,
Right.
31st to the September 1st kind of piece, that there is, there is some flexibility with that. We do offer it for the first grade. It wouldn't be horrible to offer it for students that were born in August. You just then have to start thinking, as you start increasing that age span.
Right.
We have to think of all the students in that grade level.
Right.
Do you have any idea on numbers of students this may include? I mean, are we talking 5 students, 10 students?
I'm at 7 requests right now with just the first set of
With just the
registration.
August birth dates?
No, not everybody's an August
Okay.
birth date. Some of that, there's probably 3 of them. I have requests from people that have July birth dates and June birth dates. So far, the earliest has been
Well,
June.
we're just saying August.
We're just, this is an August piece, yeah.
Right,
So
that-
the people that requested it for July and June would not
Okay.
qualify. They would be going to first grade because they would be almost 14, then 15 months older than the students that would be in kindergarten.
I just want to know what kind of impact it would have on our numbers and all that.
It's gonna, somebody's gonna be impacted at some point when you have a closing date. What you don't wanna find out is that you've backed up a date so much that you have kids that are almost 2 years apart.
Right.
A year and a half, when you start to encroach on that year and a half difference, that's a significant difference developmentally for students. That's why we have age limits within our grade levels.
Any other questions? So we're going to need a motion,
Mm-hmm.
Donna?
I recommend that the school committee amend policy JEB, entrance age mandatory admissions, to include a waiver for kindergarten retention for the school year 2021, 2022, as presented.
Second.
And that's just for this year, just
Just,
to
yeah, for
emphasize.
right
just
now.
This year only. Yeah. Okay. All right, so we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Any other questions? Hey, Donna?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. 5-0.
That was the last.
All right,
COVID.
I believe that's it for,
That is all?
okay? All right.
The only question I do have is where it's not gonna be sitting on, is this gonna sit on the policy site as a secondary?
Yeah, if you give me the Word version,
Okay,
I'll email it to them and they'll put it up there.
and just, they'll hold it up there and then they'll be able, okay.
Okay, and we will be added to the registration packet?
Yeah, I'll make sure. I've been actually in contact with Jane McDonald, who's our central registrar, because they go through her first. I've asked, we did ask, and going through Joanna as well, is to put people in the appropriate grade, and if there's going to be a change, we change them out afterwards. We do the same thing for the petition process for first grade. We put them in kindergarten until we've had a chance to go through that process. And then this way, now I can at least have some conversations with some of these parents that are at least within that age group for the August babies.
All right, any liaison reports?
Had a meeting with the Southborough PTO last night. Just a great group of parents, trying to continue on with as much normalcy as they possibly can. They have some fundraising things coming up and taking a look at, having some activities that the kids can become engaged in. I think that I'll be participating in the Zoom dance that's coming up at some point. So I'll keep you all posted in case you want to go.
Got a bad knee, I can't
I
help.
know.
Okay.
Maria?
Anyway, Wellness Committee met. We'll meet over the rest of this year with our DESI coach. The purpose is solely to review and update the wellness policy for our district. We discovered that our policy manual and the actual full policy is not in one central location. And the committee administrators, that's Katie Sims and Stephanie Quinn, they're further looking into everything to make sure that we're really giving this coach our entire policy. And then I'll come back to us with, and they'll do a presentation on what the final policy updates are. And I believe we then will have to formally adopt them. But this is a bit of work this year. It's a few hours of commitment in order to get the policy. Right now, with what we had at the DESI site, we meet like 2 things. So something is definitely wrong.
What are
and
they working off of then?
They're working off of what's on the DESI site. I
Okay,
went
but-
back.
So what are they
you gave
comparing
me.
it to say we're missing?
Oh, because they have a whole outline of what's supposed to be in this policy, and we don't meet so many of the requirements. So, but we had an audit recently, the food area had an audit recently, and we passed it. So there are things out there that are not included in that policy. Anyway, Katie and Stephanie are looking at it. They're gonna bring it back again to the next meeting, and we'll continue moving forward, but everything wasn't there. It's just so you know. LPAC continues. The board has been meeting, because we now have a board, which is really exciting. We have our next general meeting, group meeting is March 4th from 6:30 to 7:30. Zoom really works for this group. It works very well. The special guest at that meeting will be Laura Judge from the library, and she is very interested in knowing what books we would like to see for EL students at the public library. And our board members are Claudia Rodriguez, she's the president. Michael Tarakis is one of our VPs. The other VP is Joan Souza. Monique Stone and Hannah Barker are co-secretaries, and the interesting thing about both of them is that they're actually community members. They don't have children in the EL, and this council allows for that type of participation. And they're very dedicated to this area. Monique has a PhD in EL and is just raising her children right now. She's compiling the list of books with input from the teachers and from other parents and so on, that we'll present to the library. We also are going to be attending, as a board, a special DESE-sponsored parental convening, they call it, of EL councils on February 9th and 10th in the afternoons. And tomorrow is Harrington PTO.
Okay, anybody else?
Library's become a great ally for us.
The what?
That library,
The library?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
you know?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
They not only supporting that, but also with CPAC, they have a section designated
Yeah.
for materials, so they've been
I
very.
remember they came to the Center School PTO
Yeah,
one
they've been
time and
great.
just kind of, went over all the different things they offer, yeah. Speaking of Center School PTO, they're gonna be next Wednesday on the 10th, and they are, I believe, still selling tickets to their Taste of Chelmsford fundraiser, which obviously is not gonna be the same as it was in the past, but it's more of a calendar raffle where you can buy tickets and they'll draw something every day to different restaurants in town, so I believe there's still tickets available, and
It's a great
great way
idea.
to support, yeah, it's
Great
great.
idea,
We
yeah.
got a couple ourselves, so. All right, anybody else? Okay, any new items?
Linda, what I was wondering was, I understand we're doing a new schedule at the high school?
Yeah, the high school's been talking about just changing, so currently, right now, they have they have one day that they do A, B, C, D, I forgot a letter, A, B, C, D, and then in the afternoon, they repeat the A, B, C, D, and then they, on Tuesday, do an E, F, G plus, and then repeat that in the afternoon. That's different from the traditional waterfall one. So what they've done is the MTSS group and groups of teachers have got together to look at like what would be a way to make some relief on that schedule, because those afternoon sessions are pretty short. So they're 20-minute sessions. By the time the kids are logging on, they're logging off. It's like that recess. By the time you put a boot on, it's time to come back in. So they made a change in the schedule to go back to a waterfall with a 5 class rotation, but at a slower rate.
Somewhere down the road, can we get an update on how that's going?
Yes, once they've implemented it, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere down.
Yeah, I think there was definitely it was just difficult in the afternoon to keep those kids engaged, and some of them, that's where we might be seeing some of these absenteeism. The kids are not like logging back on for that last 20-minute session for a class, and then now at least putting it through a rotation will allow those kids to get a little bit of a break in the afternoons too, because they were just finding it was just too much fatigue, and it was just like almost manic to try and log on, log off, log on, and
Right.
log off.
Okay.
4 different times.
And then, can we also get an update on our rollout for the standards-based report cards?
Yeah, I can do that.
Not the next one, but maybe after, not the 23rd, because I think
You're
we
just
have.
talking about the dates of when we're doing things?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
it will be similar to what Dr. Bayronavon showed
Yes.
you. It will
Yes.
just probably be like a one slide, these are the dates of everything
Yes.
happening. Yep.
All right, anybody else? I don't know if you could do this now. Okay,
Well, the 23rd is going to be primarily budget, because that is our posted budget hearing, but then we meet the next week,
Right.
because it's just the way the calendar falls.
Yeah, I'm not talking about for the next meeting, because I know we have the budget.
No, I just mentioned to you, I think,
Yeah.
but, because the first meeting in March will come up. What were you giving me as a task?
Will you say something now?
Maybe you could do this now. Just how is sports going? Winter sports?
Oh.
And any issues? Any?
No, we only have 2 weeks left.
I know.
The season, this was a really short season. The way they added the fourth season, it just condensed everything. No, our basketball teams, hockey team, are all going. Next week is like the last week of regular season games, and then they're gonna use that vacation week to do like a modified playoff. I honestly don't understand how it's gonna work, but they have the spacing and stuff like that with the days. We haven't been offline too much. I think there were a couple of teams, MVC-wise, that had positive cases that had to come out of competition for a week, and then they've been able to come back in. So no, all in all, we've been hearing it's been pretty successful.
Right.
I think they did get approval to do that fall two
Yeah.
season. So we're gonna have to see how that goes, yeah.
In some of the cases, it wasn't the kids or the coaches that caused the problem.
Say again?
In some of the cases, it wasn't the coaches or the kids.
Oh,
It
really?
was actually a referee, I think, in one case it tested positive.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that impacted Lowell and I think Haverhill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
All right.
it's actually, so I think the kids have done pretty well, all in
Yeah.
all.
They're happy to be playing too.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it's nice to see them get to play.
I'd like to thank Mr. Murray and the staff at the high school who came together to make sure that the PSAT was held at the high school. I think it was actually not an easy feat to schedule and to make sure that they had the proctors and so on available for all the students that took it. It went extremely smoothly, and I really would like to thank them for all the extra effort. It's not something we've done in the past, sponsored it here, so appreciate that.
My final thing is, and this just struck me as we were listening to some of our different presentations, what do you think about putting together some sort of recognition program for like a brick house that's going above and beyond in supporting Project 300, even if it's just a certificate and a mention at a meeting, because we do have a lot of businesses that do support the schools, and nobody ever hears about them because they're doing it behind the scenes. So I don't know if people have any thoughts on that, or something that
What did you
kind
want
of
to
work
make?
on it.
Sorry, I missed that.
That's a good idea.
Just coming up with some sort of way of recognizing some of these businesses or organizations that are supporting our kids that they do it and and nobody ever hears about. So Brick House, I didn't know Brick House had done so much to support the.
Well, all the
Project
restaurants that do the Taste of Chelmsford.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of places
I-
that really help out, and
Yeah.
maybe we could touch base with our PTOs to make sure we've got
Yeah,
a.
so something, I don't know, and
an
it just struck me
accurate
as like, wow,
reporting,
this is something people should realize that, a business that's struggling with with everything going on is still supporting the schools and giving 50% of their proceeds to support, Project 300. I just thought that was
Yeah.
impressive that nobody knows it,
No,
except for.
it's very nice, but there are many businesses that do those type of things.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
I remember that when we were running PTO events, that one of the things that we always had to make sure is that everybody was equally recognized. So I just don't want us to recognize some and not others, and just have to think of, but I think it's like you, that it's a wonderful thing that, businesses do the things that they do. They're amazing.
Maybe we could do something in conjunction with a CBA meeting or something along those lines too.
All right, just struck me as, when I heard that, like, that's something people should know about, so. All right, any other things? Okay, any public comment that people received? Hannah Barker.
Hannah Barker
Yep.
Yeah,
emailed. Yep.
emailed about using data we have to look at cases we've encountered so far to see what difference it would make. I don't know if this is a relationship to the close contacts.
Close
Close
contact.
contact, yeah.
So, anybody interpret that better than I?
I'm gonna have to read it again.
Yeah, we can how about using data we have to look at the cases we have encountered so far, or calculate it both ways going forward for the next 2 weeks to see what difference it would make?
I think what she's saying is to pretend we were implementing the revised policy on the
6 foot.
the 6 foot, the close distancing, the CDC thing, to figure out how many more people would have been impacted or how many less people would have been impacted. I think the hard thing about going too far back, because this goes back to September, is we didn't have to keep, so we didn't keep
Right.
necessarily like who was sitting here on September 18th to figure out, that stuff. But, it could be something that we could do a 2-week look ahead. That wouldn't be as difficult as going back too far. I think she was just trying to make some kind of comparison around who would have been impacted and who wouldn't have under the scenario.
All right. Okay, anybody else have anything else? All right, if not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
5-0. All right.